getting messages from someone written on the Ace of Diamonds.
What messages?
Maybe I'm supposed to help you or something.
I need help.
45 Edgar Street, midnight.
Are you here to save us?
An unlikely hero on an unlikely mission.
Tell me, who's behind this?
From the author of The Book Thief.
Sometimes you just have to play the cards you're dealt.
The Messenger.
I like a mystery.
Starts Sunday, May 14 on ABC TV and streaming on ABC iView.
ABC Sport.
This is ABC Sports coverage of the 2023 AFL Premiership season.
Pass out to the right, steps on goal, superb finish. Turns, whacks it straight through the middle. Pulls the trigger on goal, it goes bang! 'Cause here it comes, here it comes.
On ABC Radio, ABC Sport Digital, and now streaming on the ABC Listen app. Look for the AFL button.
Something big is coming, I know.
The Roos had a hot start under Alistair Clarkson. They were 2-2 from their opening fortnight, but they've since cooled off, having lost their last 4 games. And they run headfirst into Melbourne tonight, albeit the Demons off a short week, having played here on Monday night in their Anzac Day Eve clash. They back up to take on the Roos at the Melbourne Cricket Ground on a cold night at the G. It is a rare visit for North Melbourne, just their 9th game at the MCG since 2015, an unbelievable stat in which the Gold Coast Suns are the only team in the competition that have played fewer games here during that period. So a huge occasion for a number of their young stars who get to play at the home of footy for the first time tonight. Corbin Middleman's with you in commentary alongside Jess Webster. There is no late change here at the MCG. There are a number of changes, though, from the side that ran out last week for North Melbourne. So Coleman, Jones, Tucker, Simpkin all come back into the team. There's no Davies Uniacke, who was out yesterday. Phillips and Tucker. Phillips also out of that lineup tonight as well. So that shows you the few changes that the Roos have made. Meanwhile, for Melbourne, Shackey and Harms are the two in which come into their lineup that beat Richmond back on Monday. Laurie and Petty, the two that miss out. Jess Webster's here alongside me. Hello, Jess.
G'day, Corby. A nice crisp evening here at the MCG. You can tell that winter is almost upon us. But, look, no doubt a massive challenge for North Melbourne tonight, coming up against one of the Premiership fancies. Looking forward to seeing what Alistair Clarkson might be able to pull out of his bag of tricks. And looking forward to seeing a young Harry Sheasel and Jacob Van Rooyen tonight. First time seeing them in action for me live this year. So a couple of young guns going out on either side, which should be fun.
There's no late change in the other game tonight as well, West Coast and Carlton. So we'll keep you updated throughout the night. Bazzo and Kennedy, the two subs over there. So Matt Kennedy, the sub for Carlton tonight. If you want to listen to that match, and we're not going into your market currently, get onto the ABC Listen apps, bottom right-hand corner, magnifying glass, search AFL, and on ABC AFL Extra, you can listen along to West Coast and Carlton. Brendan Goddard is going to join us shortly. Luke Ball is here from the jump, former St Kilda captain, premiership player. Hello, Bally.
Corby, Jess, it's a beautiful night for footy, isn't it, Jess? Yeah, great to be up here, but we'd love to be out there on the green stuff too. And I mean, you think some dew will probably set in at some stage, but beautiful conditions for footy. And yep, Corb, just before we went to air, we're trying to make a case, aren't we, for the Kangaroos? You mentioned the D's, off a 5-day break and a really tough finals-like contest against Richmond, who I'm sure Alistair Clarkson would have gone to school on the way that Richmond played in that first 3 quarters, really. And it took all Melbourne's class and experience to overrun them in that last quarter. But clearly it starts around the ball. That's where Richmond did the damage. They won the contested footy last week. We know this Melbourne midfield group is so powerful with the 2 ruckmen back at it now. And it's a shame to see Luke Davies Uniacke actually out of this team, because it would have been good to see him go head-to-head against some of these Melbourne superstars. So got to win centre bounce clearance, get the ball forward, try and lock the ball in. We know Alistair Clarkson's trying to teach his young team the team defence. In a way, the blueprint for that team defence goes at them at the other end tonight, in the way this Melbourne team are able to structure up and defend. So either way, they're going to get another good lesson tonight, this young North Melbourne team.
Carlton AFLW captain Karen Peterson is with us on the boundary. Good evening, Kez.
G'day, Corby. It is great to be down here. I was actually a little bit concerned coming in. It is very cold, but thankfully the wind is well and truly staying down, so should be good conditions for footy to kick off tonight. Gus Brayshaw straight into the middle. He got the honours of doing the toss tonight in game 150. He's won. That's a nice start for Melbourne. They're going to be kicking to the Ponsford stand end of the ground, or to the right of the radio dial. Looking forward to this one.
Thanks, Kez. Big day in footy already with the Tasmanian announcements of the federal government committing the $240 million, which will pave the way for a 19th licence into the competition that the Presidents will vote on later in the week. The footy today, the Lions by 8 goals, the Giants by a point, the Bulldogs by 29 over Hawthorn, and a set of games tonight to run concurrently. It's West Coast and Carlton over in Perth, and here at the MCG, North Melbourne get their chance, the home of footy, up against one of the competition's heavyweights in the Demons. On Grandstand AFL, you're with Jess Webster.
Max Gawn to take on Todd Goldstein in the ruck. He palms it straight down to Oliver. Couldn't get boot to ball. It's picked up by Cunnington of North, who gives it to Zerha, who started in the middle for the Roos. He tumbles a kick towards half forward. It's knocked away from Turner by Rivers. Chasing after it is Scott of North Melbourne. He hand passes into space. Big hit. Oliver one way, Zerha the other. Oliver wins the ball at ground level. His hand pass picked up by Turner. He's stripped to the footy. The ball's on the wing. Goldstein gets boot to ball. It only goes as far as Langdon of the D's, who hand passes to Neil Bullen in game 150. Kicks Melbourne towards half forward. In front position is Mackay. Petrarca read it best off hands. Shoots towards goal. It's still alive. In the pocket, Kate Chandler. Step around a goal for Melbourne's first of the evening. One straight 6 leading North Melbourne, yet to score. 49 seconds into the opening term here on Grandstand AFL.
Well, he's been a revelation this year, Beach, Kyle Chandler. He's really come in with Charlie Spargo out of the team and playing that forward pressure, but also hitting the scoreboard role really well. And he doesn't miss too many opportunities. That time was a lovely bit of front and centre work from Christian Petrarca at half forward and at a deep entry, and he slid forward. Probably had too much space. I'm not sure where his direct opponent was, but nice start for the Demons. I did like Zerha's attack on the footy. He's starting in the middle of starting next to Clayton Oliver, so a nice and aggressive move there from Alistair Clarkson and a great couple of attacks on the ball. Unfortunately, though, the ball was turned over on centre wing. But again, the importance of these centre clearances. Good to see Ben Cunnington in there as well. Cozzy Pickett in there for the Demons.
Kicked 3 on Monday night. He's got the first one of the game. Cade Chandler, Melbourne one straight in the middle. Gawn wins it down to Zerha, and he's tackled. Ball up. Hello, Beach.
Hello, Corby, Jess, Luke. Good to be. Perfect timing.
What were you worried about? You made it bounce.
I know.
Plenty of time. Up it goes. Comes down to Viney, who was so good on Monday night. Gets a hand pass to Oliver. Swings a handball out to Hunter in the long sleeves on the wing. He kicks to Chandler, who's got it again. Marks it left half forward, 49 metres out. He's just going to centre the ball to the hot spot. 20 out for the Melbourne goal. Scott Spoils straight down to Fritsch. Chucks it on the boot. A high ball floating goal, but it's marked by Griffin Logue, who's got it on the behind line for North. He goes short to Zeeble. North Melbourne in their bounding Roo jumper for the first time this year. Bit of a throwback.
Yeah, I like it.
The kangaroo in the middle of the jumper, predominantly in white, and Melbourne all in the navy blue. Heads out to Hall, goes with a short kick, trying to find Stevenson. He's turned it over. Melksham's got it for the D's. Hand pass to Oliver. Handball out wide, wanted Hunter. He and Shields see it out of play on the southern wing. So a boundary throw in. Cool night in Melbourne. Getting down to 8 degrees. The D's with the first goal.
Saw what he was trying to do there, Aaron Hall. Got to hit those. They've been really killed on the turnover the last couple of weeks, the Kangaroos. Got to hit those kicks.
Ball spun back into play. Gawn palms it down to Oliver. His hand pass to Viney. Soccers it along the ground to Chandler. He's stripped to the footy. Umpire calls play on. Pickett close to the line. Was tackled over it. And we have a throw in at left half forward for Melbourne. They lead by 6 early stages first term.
You mentioned Aaron Hall, Luke, but this looks like he's giving Chandler a little bit too much of a leg rope, and then we know how good he is as a ball winner and user off half back. There are times you're going to have to defend.
Gawn again wins the tap. Hall picks it up, or has a fumble in fact for the Roos. It's picked up by Viney. Hand passes into space. Goldstein's there for the Roos. His hand pass a little ill-directed. Looking for Sheasel. Goes over the line for a throw-in. Still around left half forward for Melbourne.
It's a bit of a mismatch, obviously, in recent times, given the form line of the two teams, but in one category in particular, which I'll bring you in just a moment, as Goldstein palms it down from the boundary throw into Shields. Kicks a high floating ball to the wing. Melbourne win it back. Lever, hand pass away to Brayshaw. He hands it on to Hunter, who kicks the D's inside the forward 50. Gawn competes. Zeeble gets up Spoils, and the Roos win it back. Through Logue, hand pass to Shields out of the defensive arc, and Zerha marks at half back. So conceding a score in the opposition's forward 50, North Melbourne are last in the competition, and the Demons, on the other hand, number 2 in the comp at kicking goals from their forward entries.
Zerha kicks to Comben on the wing, sends a high ball towards half forward. May standing in front position, read it best, takes the intercepting mark. Hand passes to Neil Bullen, who kicks into the centre of the ground to Chandler, who shoots it forward to Petrarca, adjacent to the centre circles. Hand passes it back to Neil Bullen, who kept running on the left and almost gets to Gawn, who picks it up. Hand passes to Oliver, loops the hand pass over the top to Fritsch. The left foot snap, as easy as you like for Bailey Fritsch. And Melbourne have a couple of goals already in this opening term. 2 straight 12. Leaving the Roos yet to score. 5 minutes played opening term. Grandstand AFL, your experts are Luke Ball and Brendan Goddard.
Well, you said it, Jess, as easy as you like, but that started off a half-back flank just above the logo on the 50 metres with an intercept mark, and North Melbourne did not touch the footy, nor did they look like touching it. So, good bit of ball movement, bit of a training drill, bring it back to the corridor, which every team tries to do, but not a lot of teams allow it, and then they link up from half-back. It was actually Neil Bullen, have to give him a lot of credit. He actually pushed out of their forward 50. I'm not sure who was chasing, couldn't see his number, but he pushed hard in defence, deep, and then he was the guy that linked up that whole way. But he started in the forward 50 for Demons, got back deep in defence, and then he was the one delivering the ball inside 50 for Melbourne.
It's got to compete, don't they, those key forwards in North Melbourne. It's going to be hard enough, we know, to score against this team defence, but when they get a one-on-one, can't be outmarked today. Larkey, Comben, these sort of types of players got to at least bring the ball to ground.
It's the last thing the Roos wanted, a fast start for the D's. They've kicked the first 2. Goldstein in the middle wins the hit out down to Zohar, who's attending another centre bounce. Kicks to half forward, Lever spoils. Out of the defensive 50 for Melbourne. It's close to the boundary line. It's out of play. Bailey Fritsch, by the way, 35 consecutive games he's kicked a goal in, which is the longest streak in the competition currently. Kicking the last goal of the match here after Cade Chandler kicked the first. 2 straight to yet to score. Boundary throw in, 55 out from the north goal at the punt road end. Grundy doing the ruck work. Falls down to Brayshaw. Clever just knocks it onto the path of Petrarca. Hand pass to Cozzy Pickett on the logo. Kicks inside 50. Fritsch has got it again. He's got a man out, tracking back to the goal square in Shackey, who's on club debut tonight at his 3rd club. And he's now been picked up, and Bailey Fritsch, one of the sharpest shooters in the game, is going back to have a look from 45 out directly in front.
Again, just crisp ball movement. Wasn't it Petrarca who started really well, looked sharp on top of the ground. Pickett involved. It was a beautiful kick, wasn't it, from Pickett to get over the top. North again playing in front, those defenders pushing up, playing aggressively. That beautiful penetrating kick. I mean, that's going to be hard to defend for anyone, the ball coming down like that.
It's usually good news for Melbourne fans when this man has the footy. It is again here. Fritsch with 2 in a row, and the Demons have the first 3. North Melbourne yet to score. Barely been inside 50. And Melbourne lead at 3 straight 18. North Melbourne zip 7.5 in.
Well, you said it, the ball use like that, but it's the lack of pressure that's on the ball use is concerning, is that they have so much time and space to make a good decision. I don't care how good your defenders are behind the ball, and in that case there's a 2v2 ahead of it, and with so much space and time with the ball carrier, you'd say it's an 80-20 kind of opportunity for the forwards, which is just too much time and space. That's the thing the most concerning on this game for me, is just the pressure around the ball from North Melbourne is non-existent, and the ability for Melbourne's mids in particular. Petrarca was a high half forward coming up, then Pickett, but Clayton Oliver earlier. There's just no pressure around the ball, and their ability to outnumber has been outstanding.
Oliver's up to 6 disposals already and 8 minutes of footy from the middle. The clearance came from Tucker, who kicks North Melbourne to half forward. Bowie is there for the D's and finds Brayshaw at left half back. The D's with the first 3 goals. North Melbourne yet to score as Brayshaw kicks inboard to Bowie. He gets it back and then chips it forward to Sparrow, who plays on, hand passes to Rivers, loops the hand pass over the top to Jordan, who has Oliver in space. Hand passes to him, but he's turned it over. And McDonald standing in the hole for North Melbourne. Squares the kick to Stevenson. It was knocked away from him by Chandler, picked up by Sheasel, who chips it forward to Simpkin, back into the lineup tonight.
Simpkin lays a hand pass away to Zerha, moving through centre half forward, unguarded goal square. He kicks for Larkey. In fact, Coleman Jones, deep running back to the behind line. It's over his head and out of play, so a throw-in half forward pocket for the Roos.
It's a big, tall forward line, isn't it? With Larkey, Coleman Jones and Comben, which, I mean, if you're getting it down there to a one-on-one, could be a strength, but the worry is ball hits the ground. We know how good this Melbourne defence is, working together.
In it comes, Goldstein and Grundy. The footy comes back to Grundy. Floats a kick out of the defensive arc. Bouncing footy in front of Shields. Competing with Pickett. Pickett does well to win the one-on-one. Shakes the would-be tackle from Stevenson. Kicks to Chandler on the wing. Chance for the Demons downhill. Chandler kicks to Gawn on a one-on-one. Opponent slips over. Gawn grabs the footy. He's still 50, 60 metres out. Kicks right to the behind line and going over Shackey. And North can mop it up as Logue goes bouncing away out of defence.
Kicks to the outer side wing, looking for Larkey. Kick didn't get there in time. Bowie was in there, but it does spill to Larkey, who gives it to Taylor. Jams it on the boot, but it's going to be a turnover straight down the throat of Oliver. This will be disposal number 8 for Clayton Oliver. Already, we've played 10 minutes into the opening term. And there's Oliver from the outer wing. Kicks Melbourne inside the arc. Shackey's got a couple to beat. It's off hands. Scott at the fall of the ball. His hand pass is picked off by Petrarca, who gives it to Jordan. Spun on the 360. Hand passes to space. Bowie picks it up. He gives it to Hunter in the long sleeves tonight. Close up against the boundary line. Wobbles a kick to Pickett from 50 metres out. Turns towards goal and goes bang! 4 in a row to Melbourne at the MCG. They've started on fire. 4 straight 24 North Melbourne yet to score. 11 minutes played opening term Grandstand AFL.
It's just 4 in 10 minutes, Jess. It's concerning. I just think from that congestion and that contest, the ball just getting out way too easy for Melbourne. So there's a lack of pressure on the ball carrier, or good pressure, on Hunter on the boundary there. But that second one, you got to get up tighter on Pickett. Just expect that to go to him, especially when he's a receiving position. But turns inside, and from 50, a great finish.
Kes Peterson on the boundary.
Ominous signs already, as you guys have been speaking about. Alistair Clarkson, very animated down here on the boundary. Turner and the runner have both copped a spray in the last 30 seconds. So hopefully we see a response here from North Melbourne.
Still marching up and down the interchange, Alistair Clarkson. His first game, obviously, at the G since the final round of 2021. His last game in charge of the Hawks, with North here for the first time in the young season. As Gawn wins the hit out back in the middle, Brayshaw paddles it out. To the advantage of Jordan. Hand pass to Viney. Kicks to centre half forward, and Sparrow takes the mark. Gee, just won his one-on-one hands down.
He did, didn't he? Against Luke McDonald too. So the skipper, he'll be disappointed with that. It was just a genuine one-on-one, a rushed high kick out of the centre square. And you'd really expect that. I mean, Luke himself would expect that to come to ground. See how disappointed he was with himself.
So Tom Sparrow, just right of centre, skips over the red paint for the 50-metre arc to make it 5 straight. And it's grim early for North Melbourne. We're only 12 minutes in, and the D's have already kicked 5 straight. North Melbourne are yet to score. 30-0. Brendan Goddard and Luke Ball on Grandstand AFL.
Well, it is concerning, is it? Hoping driving stuck in traffic, we get a good game tonight. It's not looking that way.
I did say off air that the only thing I was hoping for was North would kick the first 3 and would have a little bit of a game.
Yeah.
This is
it's just concerning all over the ground. Just a lack of intensity around the ball movement. Although you got to give credit to Melbourne, they're up and about, aren't they? So really slick, really clean. Everyone's working, running hard, but it stands out. It really stands out when it's up against North Melbourne. So they're coming off a 6-day break, travel to Gold Coast, obviously lost to them. So it's a pretty big challenge tonight at the MCG for them.
From the restart, Cunnington wins it for North Melbourne, hands it to Shields, who sends the Roos into attack, but it's another intercepting mark taken by Lever, and Combin's down. I think he's hurt. Meanwhile, Lever off to McVie, who gives it to Hibbert, who flares it out to the outer side wing through the hands of Pickett. Scott's there for North. Hands it to Hall. Has some space forward of the wing. Kicks it inside 50 through the hands of Paul Curtis, who lays an important tackle. Picked up by Tucker. His hand pass missed the target. Now Brayshaw for the D's. Gives it to Oliver. Sweeping hand pass to Jordan in the centre of the ground. His hand pass too hot for Fritsch. It's picked up by Cora of North Melbourne. He gives it to Taylor, and now Scott. From right half forward, they go back inside the arc. No one's there. It bounces in front of Lever, who has a ton of space. Now hand passes it to McVie from left half forward. He turns it over to Cunnington.
This is not looking good for Charlie Coleman.
Do they have to blow the whistle here?
No,
they're doing that.
The stretcher is out on the ground, so play will stop. As soon as Compton went down, he grabbed the lower part of his left leg. It actually looks like he's almost trying to hold his left leg
together.
In place as the trainers came
It's either
to
that or I think it maybe even Achilles.
He knew what had happened and immediately sort of took his mouthguard out, punched the ground with his right hand as he's sitting on his backside, just trying to, with two hands, hold the lower part of his left leg. So Charlie Comben, he's sitting up, communicating with the trainers, but has clearly
like
a serious problem with his lower left leg, and now the Medicab's on the way out to him. You never want to see that in any footballer on any football ground anywhere, but at 21 years of age in his 9th match of senior footy, first chance on the MCG, and he's about to be stretched off.
He's already had so many injuries in his young career as well. Such a devastating blow to North and to Charlie, of course.
Opportunity for North Melbourne, at least in the game sense, to reset a little bit as they run over and check in with Charlie Comben before the team huddle forms at centre half forward at the punt road end. But this has been a horror start, Bally, for North. Yet to score, and Melbourne already with 5 goals on the board.
Yeah, it has, and good to see a couple of Melbourne players actually going over and giving him a pat on the head. Max Gawn and Jake Lever, who was his direct opponent I think at the time, doing that as well. So that's nice to see that kinship within the playing group. But from a game point of view, you're right, Corb. It's one of those ones. If Alistair Clarkson had a timeout to call, he would have called it, wouldn't he? After they probably kicked their second or third goal, it just wasn't looking great. So who knows? Perhaps this little unfortunate stop in play can spur some rearguard action for them, because they have just been dominated. Really, the numbers look terrible. They've had Melbourne have had twice as many possessions. So winning the contest, on top, contested ball, and then spreading so much better. It's been stark, isn't it, Beach, how they've been able to get out the front of clearance and stoppages.
Congestion, just boys in general. I said it's just concerning when there's lack of pressure and it doesn't look like North Melbourne are going to lay a finger on the ball when Melbourne win in their back half. So it's just, I think it highlights the importance now of the leaders when they've got time to get together there. So the runner can spend a little bit of time out there, so send some message as well, but hopefully the leaders are just talking about and identifying what are the problems, and then Simpkin and the like getting together and actually, it's fair to say that I probably deserve a stern word to as a team, and hopefully identifying the problem. Now we can resurrect it in this last 15 or so minutes, because it's probably a little bit longer now that the stretch is taking so long. So as you said, just try and make something positive out of this
one of the issues
situation.
Yeah, it is. One of the issues, and I was going to make comment before on that very last play, it was so North Melbourne actually won the centre clearance and had the free possession. It was a really, really poor lead from Nick Larkey. Lead out of play, out of space, which allowed Jake Lever to roll off and take that intercept mark. So potentially they need to shuffle around this forward line a bit. So they started going in tall. So obviously one of them is going to be down here in Comben, unfortunately. So perhaps they need to think of it. Maybe Zerha needs Zerha needs to go forward and play on Jake Lever.
You may mention that they are tall, so this will actually give, I think, a bit of a different mix. So maybe they did go in too tall, and if they're going tall, you're either going to mark it or bring it to ground, which they weren't doing either. So
5 straight to yet to score. Melbourne lead it as Charlie Comben is now on the stretcher. They actually taped the lower part of his left leg over the top of his sock before putting him onto the Medicab. Karen Peterson, Kez, you're a fully qualified physio as well as being an All-Australian footballer. What can you tell us about what they would be doing there on field?
Yeah, look, the first thing that they'd be doing is just making sure that he's as comfortable as possible. I can't quite see from here, but I wouldn't imagine that they wouldn't have been too slow to whip the green whistle out and just make him as comfortable as possible. They certainly took every precaution and all the time required to get him onto the stretcher. It's been a rather slow process, but that would have been just for player safety, and it's obviously a very distressing injury that's occurred. As you mentioned up from the commentary position, he knew straight away that something was seriously wrong. He was slapping the ground pretty ferociously. So thankfully they've managed to get him onto the stretcher and get him off the ground and get the medical treatment that he needs. So just repeating as well, Daniel Howard, the tactical sub turned medical sub for North Melbourne. He whipped his T-shirt off pretty quickly, got his jumper on, and he'll be ready to enter the field of play once Comden has made his way off the ground on the stretcher.
He's got that green whistle, which he's blowing on at the moment as he's lying down on the Medicab, which has been taken off the MCG, just passing us underneath the MCC members, and the doc is sitting on the end of the Medicab, actually holding that left leg, the lower part of his left leg in place.
Same spot as Jeremy Howe's injury?
Yeah, very similar area of the ground, sort of centre half forward at the punt road end. North trail by 30 points, so that's injury to insult, really, the way the game started for them. Melbourne kicking the first 5 goals in the opening 13 minutes of play. North haven't scored. They'll have the footy here through Ben Cunnington at high half forward, 70 metres out from their goal, but now Charlie Comben out of the match with what is a suspected sort of broken leg after an incident at centre half forward just moments ago.
So Dan Howe comes on. I wonder if there's an immediate role for him on Clayton Oliver. We know he's played a run-with role before. I think that's where he plays his best footy. Oliver's had 9 possessions already halfway through the first quarter. I wonder if that's an opportunity for Alistair Clarkson to make that move.
So Cunnington restarts plays. He kicks to the hot spot in the right forward pocket. No mark for the Roos, and it immediately comes out. McVie bounces a kick back to half forward for the Roos. Cunnington puts it inside again. Got to Bowie on the half volley. Spills out to Oliver. Short kick to Viney. Steps through a would-be tackler. Hand pass to Brayshaw. Hands it out to Hunter, and the hand pass along the boundary line finds Jordan. Short kick to the Roo. Van Rooyen, who takes the mark against the Roos tonight, which might be a little confusing.
He chips it further afield to Hunter, close to the boundary line. Kicks North Melbourne a half forward to a contest. The fist came from Zeeble. Spills down to Hall. He's bumped out of play by Hunter. We've got a throw in at left half forward from Melbourne.
Oh, that wasn't one of mine. Mo off the SMS, 0437 774 774. G'day, guys. As a country resident, it's my first in-person game at the G in Yonks. Feels a bit overwhelming. I don't know how you city slickers do it. Bright lights, big city. By the way, I feel there might be some challenging moments in the commentary box differentiating between the calling of Boo, Roos and Roo, of course, for Van Rooyen.
We'll certainly do our best as the ball spun back into play. No winner. And we've got a stoppage about 70 out from Melbourne's goal. 5 straight they've kicked. North Melbourne yet to score. Tucker put his head over it. It spills to Stevenson. He couldn't get a clean possession away. Oliver, his hand pass partially deflected. Viney whacks it forward to Pickett, who hand passes backwards to Jordan, who then gives it off to Hunter and chips it into the 50. And he's found Neil Bullen at 45 out from goal, 5 metres in from the boundary.
Well, there's some Melbourne players at the moment who are licking their lips a bit, aren't they? Lockie Hunter getting plenty of the footy. You mentioned Clayton Oliver, Jordan. Just too much space from their Kangaroos opponents.
Neil Bullen crosses the paint of 50. It's going to go towards the line. It's knocked away from Gawn. Ball still alive. As McDonald picks it up, he put his teammate under pressure. Umpire called play on. Now it spills to Oliver. Gets a left foot kick, scrubbers it towards the teeth of goal. Gawn couldn't take it cleanly. Fritsch is also in the area. Logue laying a tackle. And we've got a stoppage, 15 out from Melbourne's goal. They lead by 30, 22 played opening term.
The clearance numbers are 5 each, but the efficiency and at ease which Melbourne have won theirs is a bit concerning if you're a North Melbourne supporter.
Gawn wins it down to Sparrow. Hall locks him up and a ball up in the forward pocket. 30-0. Melbourne lead it. Still in the opening quarter. From the restart, Coleman Jones down to Scott. Shoots a kick forward straight to Bowie. Takes the mark, and he's 2 steps inside the 50 here. And the young defender, the 20-year-old Jake Bowie, doesn't get this opportunity too often. He's kicked only 2 goals in his 31-game career. He arcs out to the right, takes advantage of the stand rule, drives his kick to the behind line. It's punched through by Griffin Logue. And the first behind of the night, 23 minutes in. Melbourne 5-1, North Melbourne yet to score. Just repeating the news, Charlie Comben suffering what is a suspected broken leg, so subbed out of the game, and Daniel Howe is in for the Roos.
From the kick in, North Melbourne work it to Scott, still inside defensive 50. Spears a kick down the line and hits Turner, defensive side of the wing. Looking for a target up ahead. Going the Coleman-Jones direction, but this came from Hibbert. Kills the contest, and we've got a throw in right in front of us on the members' wing, in front of the interchange gates. It's Melbourne by 31.
No, I have to be prepared to take yards today and take a stoppage on that slow play, in particular the Kangaroos, the way that Melbourne defend.
Halfway through the first quarter in Perth, it's Carlton by 11 points over West Coast, so 2-1. Free kick non-controlling umpire, a hold. It's going Grundy's way. A ruck infringement against Coleman Jones.
He's received
no, in fact, that's what the confusion is. It's actually James Jordan's free kick.
I was about to say, I think it was Brody Grundy's won the most free kicks out of any player so far this AFL season. Thought he was going to add another one to his tally. No.
So first they thought it was Grundy, then they thought it was Jordan, and then he's had to hand the ball to Rivers. And after the rather comical episode, eventually the right man's got the footy, James Jordan. And he shares it with Rivers, gets it back to Bowie, kicks out wide for Grundy, spills the mark. So a few errors from all involved here. Shields collects, runs out of play. The ump says deliberate.
Well done. That was very deliberate.
Shields collected the ball 1.5 metres in the boundary.
Up by Chris Donlan. He's been around a while.
Yeah, seen that before.
Exactly what was going on there.
Grabbed it, ran straight out of play. Viney high half forward, kicks to the top of the goal square. They all miss it. Neil Bullen had a play on it, lost it. Fritsch ushers it out to Pickett, dances through a couple, got boot the ball, but straight to Sheasel. Sheasel bangs it back out to half-back, but the holding the ball is going to be paid. So Pickett penalised top of the goal square, and Luke McDonald will get the free kick for Melbourne. First 31 points of the game, all to the D's. North Melbourne yet to score, 25 gone, opening term.
How long before we just see the last touch rule come into the AFL?
A while, I'd hope.
Ooh.
What's the feedback been like from South Australia?
Relative. We can throw it open. South Australian listeners off the SMS 0437 774 774.
30. Oh, yeah.
So McDonald actually had the free kick, kicks to the wing, and there's been a free kick, I think, against Coleman Jones in the contest against Grundy.
Your man Grundy.
And then a 50-metre penalty as Cunnington ran away with the footy. So Grundy's going to be marched to within scoring range.
Yeah, you can't blame the crowd noise there either, Benny Cunnington, unfortunately. He's probably only about 25, 30 in the house, Ben. You've got to know better there. And Chris Donlan, he's not having any of it tonight, is he? He's very quick to say, no, come with me. So a bit of a gift here for Brodie Grundy. Just exactly what Callum Coleman Jones and North don't need.
He's just kicked the 1 goal so far this season. Brodie Grundy, of course, the former Pie, is 20 metres out from goal, pretty much directly in front. He'll come in and add further pain to North Melbourne here in this opening term. It is an avalanche of goals to the D's. 6-1, 37, leading North Melbourne yet to score, and we've played 26 minutes. Opening term, Grandson, AFL, Luke Ball and Brendan Goddard, your experts.
I like to see them bring in that rule that in a free kicking in a contest, the ball, there's no advantage. Because how often do we see that something like that, he's just rolled the dice hoping that it was a free kick to him, or he knew it was a free kick to Melbourne and trying to bluff Chris Donlan. But quite often a kick's paid, no one knows whose it is, everyone stops and turns around, and the guy with the ball picks it up, just takes off, hoping that it's their free kick, and there's a huge advantage from that. So if it's in a contest of, I don't know, so more than multiples of...
like it.
Yeah. You have to stop.
So was it?
Yeah, it was
pretty soft free kick, to be honest.
So soft free kick and then huge penalty on the 50 from the kick downfield. First 37 points of the game for the Demons. 27 minutes into this opening term, and it'll be a long one after the Comben injury. Stretched it off with a suspected fracture in his leg. Rare centre break for the Roos. Cunnington, hand pass to Simpkin. Kicks out to half forward. Larkey competes, no mark. Ball still live, half forward for the Roos. Stevenson, hand pass turnover. Petrarca for Melbourne. Hand pass away to Hibberd. Kicks down that southern wing. Chandler slides in, no mark. Falls through to Neil Bullen. Had it, lost it. North win it back. McDonald stands up with the footy. He's tackled and taken to ground. And we'll have another stoppage underneath the Shane Warne stand. Over in Perth, 6 minutes to go in the first quarter there. Carlton 3-3, West Coast 1-3, so a 12-point lead for the Blues.
Grundy and Coleman Jones wrestle. It spills to Cunnington. His kick smothered. Picked up by Curtis, who gives it back to Coleman Jones. Rushes a kick into the arc. And May doing well defensively. And the D's come up with it. Neil Bullen shares it with Brayshaw from the defensive 50. Kicks a high ball to the outer wing. Royan has a couple to beat. The fist came from Core. Spills to McDonald. Brushes off Royan from the wing. He sends North Melbourne into the arc. It bounces in front of Curtis. Sparrow's on his hands and knees for the D's. Brayshaw taps it forward intelligently to Rivers, who picks it up. Hand passes to Grundy. He's turned it over. Simpkin picks it up. He hand passes to Sheasel. They're on the wing. And now Shields gets it from Taylor, who gives it back to Taylor as he was tackled. Taylor tumbles a kick into the arc. And the drop mark from Lever. And now the ball spills to Hunter, who gives it off to Brayshaw from left half back, chips it forward to Grundy. That's not 15. Sheasel comes in, gives it to Taylor. He's close to the boundary line. He hand passes inboard, and it's a free kick for too high going Taylor's way.
So Curtis Taylor, his 47th consecutive game. He kicks into the forward pocket. Lever had hands on it, no mark. Falls down to Brayshaw. Hand pass trying to keep it alive. Went to Larkey. He's tackled. Lost the footy. Ball stays alive. High up and under kick from Langdon. Out to half back. Flying in the air. Neil Bullen. No mark. Picking it up. Shields shoots a hand pass away to young Powell. Hand pass away to Simpkin. Salt the dummy. Jump back on the right peg. Kicks right to the goal line. Zerha contested mark. Wins a one-on-one. Had Hibbard coming back with him. Hibbard tried to spoil it through for a rush behind, but Zerha got his mitts around it. And Death and Taxes less of a short thing from there as Zerha pops it up into the second deck. And the Roos are on the board. At the 30-minute mark of the opening term, having seen 6 go through at the other end. North Melbourne 1 straight. Off the boot of Can Zerha. Melbourne 6-1-37. The D's by 31 points. Grandstand AFL, Brendan Goddard, Luke Ball.
Well, something positive the last 3 or 4 minutes from the North Melbourne Footy Club was really good, to be honest. Re-entries, I was going to criticise just their entries. Just sitting the ball on top of Larky's head with May, Lever there. A couple of rush kicks, like a bit more composure, but took something of a contested mark from Zerha, who made mention, Bally, that he started on ball and he may have to go forward, which he's done, which has been playing a lot more on ball this year. But good 5-minute patch for North Melbourne and set up really well behind it, locked the ball inside 50. The intensity's been has raised from North Melbourne, which was able to keep the ball in their forward half.
Inside 50s, 14-12, the way of Melbourne, so they've only had 2 more. Just scored quite efficiently. Free kick to North Melbourne in the centre of the ground, going to Goldstein for a ruck infringement. He shoots it short to Simpkin.
Oh, that's the one he's got to roll and get it in deep. 6-6-6 now he allows. Look at Melbourne get back in numbers now. Oh, no.
Yeah, Simpkin tried to chip it towards Shields at half forward, knocked away from him, and D's have the numbers. Neil Bullen to Rivers, who flares it out wide to the wing and finds Shaki on club debut. Front of the Shane Warne stand. Nice kick towards Petrarca. 2 kicks from goal. Marks in front of Hall. Petrarca wheels around, sends a long penetrating kick into the pocket. The fist came from McDonald. It spills to Viney. His left foot snap across the face of goal, and it's a drop mark from Scott. Ball spills over the line, so we're going to get a throw in deep inside Melbourne's forward 50. They lead by 31-32 played opening term.
Dew set in down there. There's been a few drop marks. Are we the players an excuse? No,
it's cooling down.
It's coming. The Dew.
Goldstein palms it down to Oliver inside the forward 50, trying to fight through a tackle. Got his hand pass out. Pack forms behind him. Sheasel involved along with Sparrow. Ball held in. Eventually says holding the ball. I think a Melbourne player ended up with it in Sparrow, so it's a free kick for North. Gee, you could have thrown a blanket there, Beach, over 20 players. Hunting the footy. And
Chris saw something we didn't.
He's not in the mood tonight, I'm telling you. That's why Chris Donlan. He's not in the mood.
He doesn't want to chuck too many up. He's happy to keep it all moving as Sheasel takes the free, goes to Goldstein, who tries to rip it down. He was third in the queue, no mark. Inadvertently socket out of play by Shields, and the ump says boundary throw-in. Karen Peterson on the boundary.
More unfortunate news down here for North Melbourne. Jack Zeebel's just come off the ground shaking his head and walked straight down underneath into the rooms, followed very quickly by the physio. So I'll keep an eye on that and get back to you.
Thanks, Kez. Ball spun back into play. Gone with a big tap to Pickett. That was beautiful to watch. Pickett shoots it towards half forward. Out on the lead is Shaki. He's about 55 out from home, so he elects to chip it beautifully into the pocket where Fritsch has space. And marks 5 metres in from the boundary. He's about 30 out.
I've said it before, but that was too much like a training drill, wasn't it, Paul? It was a great, don't get me wrong, great tap from Max Gawn, who's playing on Todd Goldstein. He's been a great ruckman for a long time and still is, mind you, but...
For 3 first quarter goals to Bailey Fritsch. He sneaks it home, although I think we're going to have a score review.
Looked good from here, all right behind it, wasn't it?
He got in, yep.
There's just got to be pressure on Pickett. Ran through that stoppage unattended, and there may have been a block or something, but there's got to be a handover and more accountability from North Melbourne mids. It's the bit of a coach killer, those allowing the ball back through the corridor, particularly with such a long, deliberate hit.
Career high 7, Fritsch, is it? Corb, you're my man for that.
This is like under 10s footy, mate, when you've got like 4 in the first quarter.
Yeah,
you're going to kick 16.
I reckon he can sniff a bag tonight.
I think we're
reckon
checking
there's a
whether or
double-figure
not
job.
it went over the line of the goalpost.
The goalpost, yeah. I think he curled it round okay.
Looked good from our position, didn't it?
And it's one of those ones that's going to be pretty hard to tell, isn't it? So it's the umpire's call, almost nothing more certain.
Yeah, the umpire's call was a goal. So halfway
Sure,
there.
you back yourself in. He's right there, had plenty of time to look at it.
We don't need this quarter dragging on any longer, do we?
So the goal is confirmed. Fritsch has 3 and Melbourne have 7. 7-1, 43 leading North Melbourne. 1 straight 6:35 played in the opening term here on Grandstand AFL.
You're right, Paulie. So game against Adelaide, round 22, 2021, here at the MCG. Interesting to note that night when he kicked 7, or that afternoon, it didn't kick a goal in the first quarter. So he's playing in front of here. He kicked 7 in the last 3 of that match.
Yeah, well, he looks sharp, as they all do. I think we spoke before the game, so they're off a 5-day break. And relatively sluggish, certainly first half against the Tigers, but they've picked up where they finished off that game, that last quarter. They were electric, and it's just been led by all their star players. Oliver, Brayshaw, Viney's look sharp. Pickett's been involved, as we know. Petrarca and Fritsch finishing the work.
I think it was young Sheasel that was just sitting off the back of the stoppage and might pop up during the week. He just needs stay a little bit more connected to that stoppage.
It's a ruck free kick.
Back to a game high, 37 points, Melbourne's way. Petrarca out of the middle, takes advantage. The free kick and Pickett marks on his chest, just got in front of Aaron Hall and marks it, 30 metres out, right half forward for the D's.
Highlighted him earlier, but it's only the first quarter, but it's already a tough night for Aaron Hall. He's had a number of lead-ups on him. Contested mark. He let Petrarca find some space on that far wing before when it looked like they had them hemmed in.
Pickett's already got 1. This will make it 8 first quarter goals for Melbourne, and the route is on early. Through it goes. The couple for Cozzy. And Melbourne move to 8-1, 49. North Melbourne 1 straight 6. 36 minutes into a quarter, seemingly without end, after Charlie Compton unfortunately was stretched off earlier in the term with a suspected broken leg. Luke Ball and Brendan Goddard, Grandstand AFL.
Okay, so what's been a little bit disappointing, Beej, is some of the mistakes by the senior North players. Okay, we know there's a lot of youth out there that either way are going to get a good lesson tonight, but Todd Goldstein there making the mistake running across the centre square and giving the free kick away, which led to the Petrarca clearance. We've seen Ben Cunnington give away a 50-metre penalty. Luke McDonald's made a few mistakes. So that's the thing that'll be disappointing. Jai Simpkin, instead of wheeling and kicking it long out of that centre bounce, short to a 50-50. So that's the sort of stuff that is controllable from them. That'll be really disappointing Alistair Clarkson and the coaching staff.
Still got a couple of minutes to play after that combat injury from the middle. Almost a clean takeaway from Oliver. He does end up getting possession. Jams it on the boot, and it's marked by Gawn, still inside the centre square. Can turn around and look for an option at full forward. There's a contest. Grundy's there. Out the back is Royan, but it hasn't touched on its way through.
Looked like it hit the back.
So I think we're getting a score review. The D's players are certain it was a goal. Well, they were celebrating as if it was one. So it would be, we're going upstairs, it would be a goal from Gawn from the centre square.
Umpires believe it was touched, so...
So far, the first angle. Did it touch Royan on the head? It did. So it actually grazed Van Rooyen's head in the contest on the way through the goals. So it is a point.
If we're playing a different game,
and
he was
celebrating too. He was trying to pull the wool over the umpire's eyes again.
So Melbourne moved to 8-2-50 and brought up the half century, leading North Melbourne 1 straight 6, 38 played opening term.
Oh, he's the skipper one there, doesn't he? He would flat with that. Get your head out of the way.
McDonald to the back pocket for Aaron Hall.
Might have to get a haircut during the week.
He's rightfully so got a pretty big head from last week, hasn't he? From his game-winning performance and nearly being subbed out.
Kicked 3 in the last quarter as the D's came from behind us. Hall goes to half-back and Max Gawn takes a juggled mark. Bounces off his chest, he reels it in. The D's skipper, the number 11 on his back. Crowded forward 50. 8 goals already in the turn for the Demons. He lays it up in the Grundy direction. They come from everywhere to compete in the air. Falls down to Petrarca, extracts it, hand pass to Oliver, gives it to Jordan. He's tackled by Hall, dispossessed. Ball comes out. Oliver had it, lost it. Sheasel squeezes a kick, went straight to Hall. Now he pops it out of the defensive arc. They still scrap and compete for the footy. Half forward for the Demons. Viney's got it, held to him by Simpkin. But a ball up, 50 metres out, half forward for the D's. Melbourne 8 goals to 1. They lead by 44, 39 minutes into the opening term.
Grundy palms it down, chasing after it as Sheasel of North Melbourne. Pickett tackles him over the line delicately. And we'll get a throw in where the 50-metre line meets the boundary.
So the game in Perth started after us by 5 minutes. They've reached quarter time there. So it's Carlton 5-6-36, West Coast 2-3-15. So at quarter time it's Carlton by 21.
Ball in, half forward for Melbourne. Goldstein palms it down to Cunnington, who jams a kick forward, and that's a good mark by Taylor on the point edge of the square. Kicks it to the members' wing. Stevenson is in a bit of space. He marks uncontested in front of the interchange gates. Looking into the corridor initially and then decides to kick it into the arc. Rivers got fingertips to it, and it spills to Taylor, who looked for a free kick. And then it spills to Oliver, who gives it to May, and now to Hibbert from inside defensive 50. Kicks out wide, looking for Shaki, knocked away from him. It spills to Chandler. He's got space at half back. Chips it to the wing where Ved Ryan marks.
Here he is, the man they call the Roo. Colt status already. Hand pass away to Hunter. Feeds a hand pass to Oliver. Up over halfway. He's just going to give it back to Hunter. All too easy as he runs to high half forward. Kicks inside to 50. Bounces once before reaching Grundy. Knocks it away to Chandler. Can't collect. Spills to Shields. Hand pass to McDonald. Back to Shields. Kicks out of the defensive arc. Right on the bell to end the opening term, which finishes at the 41-minute mark. After the sad injury to young Charlie Comben earlier in the quarter, Comben holding his lower left leg, went off sucking the green whistle on the Medicat. The 21-year-old in his 9th game suffering what is a suspected broken leg. So Daniel Howe into the game for North Melbourne. They have huge problems, the Roos, and they're down 8 goals to 1 at quarter time. And Melbourne with just a solid flex here, 8-2-50. North Melbourne 1 straight 6. Their only goal in the quarter came at the 30-minute mark. And it was only after Melbourne had put through 6 at the other end. The goal kickers in that opening term, Bailey Fritsch has 3, Keziah Pickett has 2, and then singles for Grundy, Sparrow and Chandler, while for North Melbourne, Zerha, as mentioned, with their only goal. Quarter time here, Melbourne by 44. Quarter time in Perth, Carlton by 21 over West Coast. The SMS number 0437 774 774. Chris from Brunswick, this is Melbourne. A cool night listening to the footy on the ABC. A very close game right up until the game started. Thanks for the call from your team. Thanks, Chris. Nice to hear from you. This one for you, Beach, from Adam in Adelaide. Says, love the last touch rule. Keeps the ball moving and central. And none of the relying on the umps for deliberate. And Marcus, who's the Docker and Panther off the SMS, says, last touch in Perth and Adelaide, no one seems to care. So it's got good support.
I was going to say it's been introduced into Perth as well.
Yeah.
So good feedback.
So, but you don't want it here?
Not right now.
Right. Okay. Need to see a little more.
Yeah. Haven't seen it at all.
Okay.
But just don't like the sound of it.
Keep them coming. 0437 774 774. I don't like things now.
Well, when you think
the way
about
they used to be.
Do they have any throw-ins at all? Are there any? Are they done with boundary?
It's just between the arcs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thoughts of Brendan Goddard and Luke Ball coming up in just a moment on ABC Radio, Sport Digital, and now streaming through the ABC Listen app. This is Grandstand AFL.
With the ABC Listen app, you can take the footy with you wherever you go. Off to walk the dog?
Take the footy.
Going camping?
Take the footy.
Picnic in the park?
Take the footy.
ABC Sport's expert coverage of the AFL
Incredible grab.
and the NRL. Every goal, try, mark and tackle, live and commercial free. So whatever you're up to,
Take the footy.
take the footy with you on the ABC Listen app.
Grandstand AFL.
Now streaming every match on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
Melbourne towards half forward. In front position is Mackay. Petrarca read it best off hands. Shoots towards goal. It's still alive in the pocket. Kate Chandler. Snap around the goal for Melbourne's first of the evening. Hand passes it back to Neil Bullen, who kept running on the left and almost gets to Gawn, who picks it up. Hand passes to Oliver, loops the hand pass over the top to Fritsch. The left foot snap, as easy as you like for Bailey Fritsch.
It's usually good news for Melbourne fans when this man has the footy. It is again here. Fritsch with 2 in a row, and the Demons have the first 3.
To Hunter in the long sleeves tonight, close up against the boundary line, wobbles a kick to Pickett from 50 metres out, turns towards goal and goes bang!
So Tom Sparrow, just right of centre, skips over the red paint for the 50-metre arc to make it 5 straight. And it's grim early for North Melbourne.
Brodie Grundy, of course the former Pie, is 20 metres out from goal, pretty much directly in front. He'll come in and add further pain to North Melbourne here in this opening term.
Had Hibbert coming back with him. Hibbert tried to spoil it through for a rush behind, but Zurha got his mitts around it. And Death and Taxes less of a short thing from there as Zurha pops it up into the second deck. And the Roos are on the board.
The 3 first quarter goals to Bailey Fritsch. He sneaks it home.
Pickett's already got 1. This will make it 8 first quarter goals for Melbourne, and the rout is on early.
The 2023 AFL season.
On radio,
ABC Sport Digital.
and now streaming on the ABC Listen app.
There's pretty one-way traffic in that opening term. Melbourne 8-1. It's the Demons who lead it by 44 points at quarter time. Luke Ball and Brendan Goddard with us on Grandstand AFL. Just repeating the quarter time score 2 over in Perth. It's Carlton by 21 over the Eagles.
Well, I mean, it's been a demolition job. We know that, and we tried to find some areas where the Kangaroos might. I mean, we saw Richmond last week, really. To beat this Melbourne team, clearly it starts in the court. I mean, they're the most dynamic, I think the most powerful midfield group with the 2 ruckmen. And not just the inside stuff, but the outside stuff as well. We know with Langdon and Lockie Hunter that's come into the team. And then you throw in Neil Bullen and Chandler who's playing really good footy. And you can see why, they're a top 2 team, we think, tonight. And the reality is they're playing a bottom 2 team. So technically, I guess, BG, and look at the numbers. I mean, Clayton Oliver's had 16. Only 6 of those contested. And that's, again...
Plus 43 possessions.
Yeah, we mentioned it's the uncontested stuff. We mentioned that, the stuff that'll be disappointing Alistair Clarkson.
And it's not as if Melbourne are playing a control game. Let's maintain possession. It's literally like get speed on the game, and North Melbourne do not look like touching it half the time when Melbourne win it back, particularly in their back half and even in their D50.
Well, what they do so well with Neil Bourne, it's like we mentioned, those high half forwards, those elite running half forwards, they get up the ground, they get up at stoppages, they force their opponent to make a decision, whether to come up with them and even out the numbers, and if you don't, well, we're probably going to nut you around the stoppages because we're so good, and we've seen some brilliant stuff from Gawn and Grundy. Or do you drop back? Do you sit back and try and support your defence? Well, North Melbourne haven't been able to do either. They've been caught in between a lot of the time. They haven't impacted the stoppages at all. A lot of the times it's been young Sheasel sitting across half back by himself. But it's been bypassed a lot, hasn't it?
Correct. So just to explain that, it's more he's sitting 30 metres off the back of a stoppage, which he allows his opponent to go up. But then when they're winning it so cleanly out of stoppage, he's just bypassed. So it's not a quick kick. He's in a quick kick position to impact, but it's not because they're not putting enough pressure around the stoppage, and Melbourne are simply walking out when they do win it because North Melbourne are winning the stoppages. Albeit by a small margin.
Let's see how the Roos go after a chat with Clarko. 8 first quarter goals for the Demons, a 44-point lead. Free kick in the middle straight away for Melbourne. So another centre break coming up. Oliver held without it. Dishes off a hand pass to Brayshaw. Long kick inside the forward arc. Shackey third in the queue, no mark. Slides off hands, close to the boundary line. Van Rooyen collects. Hand pass knocked out of play. A boundary throw-in.
Well, Clayton Oliver will have 50 possessions if no one goes to it. It looks like Liam Shields is playing on him. I'd go with Daniel Howe. Yeah, I mean, Liam Shields has been a warrior. We know that, and one of Clarko's favourite lieutenants. But I just think Oliver's too big and powerful for him. I'd give Daniel Howe a crack.
Goldstein palms it down, and it spills away off Howe. Tumbles a kick to the wing. Larkey gets touch on it before it goes out of bounds. So we've got a throw in just forward of the interchange gates. Melbourne into attack. Lead by 44 points on. It's a beautiful crisp evening here in Melbourne. Temperature about 11 degrees at the moment. A modest crowd in at the G tonight.
First goal of the second quarter in Perth to Carlton, so they now lead by 27. Early stages second term.
From the throw in, free kick to Goldstein. He was held. He elects to kick backwards to Sheasel, who kicks backwards inside defensive 50 to Aidan Core. He then continues the switch, but the kick goes over the head of Mackay and dribbles out of play. So we'll get a throw in on the other side of the ground at right half forward for Melbourne. Let's go downstairs, Karen Peterson.
So Jack Zeeble, who spent the last part of that fourth quarter down in the rooms, has taken his place on the ground to start this second quarter.
Thanks, Kez. Boundary throw-in. Grundy in front, knocks it down, but Hall there for the Roos. Hand pass away to Sheasel. Off the back flank, kicks a left footer. Down that southern wing, May working his way to the front, drops a mark, falls to Sparrow. He's taken front on and the tackle by Stevenson and taken over the shoulder. And Stevenson says, why was that? And Ray Chamberlain says you need to be more constructive with your feedback, and he's going to march him 50 metres down to right half forward for the D's.
I was wondering where you were going to go with that.
There's another one too. He's kept going at it. There's a double. Yeah, he's kept going.
And Ray Chamberlain's done the old school sort of hand out.
Talk to the hand.
Talk to that.
Right, Lewis, please.
He's had enough of it. Jaden Stevenson has given a 100-metre penalty, a certainty for Rivers, who can pop it through from the top of the goal square. And Trent Rivers starts the scoring for Melbourne in quarter number 2. They pick up where they left off, and we're only 3 minutes into the second term. The margin is already 50. 9-2 to 1 straight. Brendan Goddard, Luke Ball.
I mean, it's poor, isn't it? Because it was a free kick. It was a clear free kick from mine.
Yeah,
so,
he suggested that he ducked, but I'm not sure if he was demonstrative, but he's definitely talking to Ray, and then I think just adding a little bit of fuel to the fight, Ray just puts a hand up and says, just, you know, oh, come on, mate.
Yep. When we show the Ray Chamberlain highlights when he retires, that'll be on there, won't it? Just the handout to Jaden Stevenson. Is that a bit of me?
I'm not making any comment, mate. I've already made a comment, but that's enough for me.
Oh, no.
So in the replay, it just looked like he suggested that he ducked his head. Didn't throw his arms, actually.
He almost had a smile, Stevenson, before he gave away the second 50, so Chamberlain wasn't having any of it. Meanwhile, in the middle, Cunnington wins the clearance for North Melbourne, sends him inside 50. Brayshaw's there for the D's, hand passes to Hibberd. He hands it off to Langdon, now to Bowie, close to the line. Wobbles a kick down the line. It's going to be a turnover. Harry Sheasel, the rising star contenders, takes the intercepting mark for North Melbourne just forward of the wing. On the southern side of the ground, called to play on, so wheels around and pumps it along to a dangerous position to a big pack. And it spills to Rivers, who gives it to Bowie, and Melbourne can exit again off to Sparrow and now to Langdon at right half back.
He kicks down that southern wing is what I'm searching for, and Ben Mackay works his way to the front of Shaq. He takes the intercept mark.
Well, Jaden Stevenson and his fellow North Melbourne crummers would do better trying to win a ground ball inside 50 here, because they've had 20 inside 50s North, but they just cannot, as soon as the ball comes to ground, Stevens are there in numbers and just sweep it out.
It's either bombed in, or when they do have a bit of time and space, it's under enough pressure where they're getting no real good looks at it or not lowering their eyes to actually find the lead up.
Mackay to half forward, it's out of bounds. So from the throw-in, Grundy wins it down. Langdon, hand pass to Bowie, hand pass to Brayshaw, gives it to Grundy, and a handball out wide for Sparrow, who's against the boundary line, floats a kick down the wing, tough one to mark. Hall in front, grabs the footy after it hits the deck, spins around off his right peg, chips the ball to Shields. Sparrow spoils. Live footy logo, southern wing. Oliver just keeps it moving forward. Shacky goes back in after it. It's stolen away from him. Shields to Sheasel. And a hand pass out to Howe, defensive side of the southern wing.
He shoots it forward to Cunnington, who dives to take the mark. A couple of kicks from goal. He wheels around and kicks a long ball into the pocket through the fingertips of Zerha. Mays out the back from Melbourne. His hand pass to Brayshaw, who was out of bounds. And the umpire says throw it in front of a contingent of North Melbourne fans in that pocket. They weren't happy with the call. But we'll get a throw in. Inside 50 for North Melbourne. They trail by 50 points. 5.5 played second term.
Grundy, the seat giving way in front of him on Goldstein, won the head out down to Jordan. Hand pass to Oliver, got it again. Floats a kick to the wing and Shacky marks. And his new colours, Josh Shacky, picked 2 from all those years ago by way of Brisbane, and the Bulldogs now with Melbourne. He turns it over here to Stevenson. Another recycled player, the former Magpie, chips into the middle of the ground for Simpkin. His kick smothered. Van Rooyen got a hand on it. Spills down to Chandler, centre half back. Hand pass for Melbourne away to Grundy. Wants to give it back to Chandler. He didn't know it was coming. Shakes a would-be tackle. Hand pass to Hibbert. The fellow lefty kicks out wide and Van Rooyen collects in front of the interchange. Hand pass to Hunter.
His hand pass along the ground, looking for Neil Bullen. And Logue comes in, picks it up, it runs out of bounds. So we're going to get a throw in.
They're coming for you off the SMS beat. Simon from Innovative Adelaide. BJ, I didn't like beach reading until I worked up the courage to try it. One touch rule is good. And Andrew says it's not last touch, it's disposal out of bounds, and it's brilliant. Has reduced throw-ins by 38%.
Melbourne
So I don't have the stats, so I haven't witnessed it. That's why I said, but the thought of it, I just don't like it. But I'd have to witness it first and get a little bit more than a sample size. But good feedback, Kevin Cumming.
Melbourne by 50 as Gawn wins a free kick from the boundary throw-in. He's on the wing. Sends it long to a crowded forward 50. Van Rooyen's in the contest. The fist came from Logue. It spills to ground. Chandler chasing after it. He goes to ground. Rivers tries to paddle it to his own advantage. Sheasel's also there for North Melbourne. They scrap for the footy inside the arc. Sheasel on his hands and knees. Wins the footy. It ricochets to Mackay. Jams it on the boot out of defensive 50. But Brayshaw's there for the D's. Gives it to Langdon. A rush kick from the boundary into the corridor. And it's marked by Shields.
Shields goes long to Nick Lark. He's going to take the mark defensive side of the wing. 7.5 minutes into the second term. Melbourne by 50. 9 goals to 1. Lifts a hand pass away to Bailey Scott. Chips down to right half forward and Turner marks. He's got it between wing and half forward. And 27-year-old for North Melbourne. He looks back inboard.
Look at them get back. Yeah, they look up now on every Melbourne player. Geez, they do that as well, if not better than any team in the competition, the D's.
Shields marks, kicks in the middle of the ground for young Sheasel. Hand pass to Zeeble, kicks inside the forward arc. Gawn goes up, no mark, falls out the back, and Melbourne again with numbers closer to goal. Hibbert, hand pass away to McVie, and he kicks long to a contest. Van Rooyen in that pack. Spills down off the hands of Logue. He goes to ground. He's in trouble now as Van Rooyen comes to him. Paddles the ball out to the advantage of Shields, who can put the Roos inside 50.
From right half forward, a central kick looking for Goldstein coming through was Coleman Jones. Ball spills to ground. Pickett's there inside defensive 50 from Melbourne. He flares the kick out wide where Hunter takes the chest mark at left half back. Melbourne by 50, 8.5 played second term. Hunter chips it further afield to Neil Bullen. Lowe couldn't get there in time for the spoil. Neil Bullen spears it down the line to Fritsch. He's got it between wing and half forward on the members' side of the ground. Looks for a target inside 50. Hall coming across with the fist for North Melbourne. Kills the contest out of bounds. Throw in 20 metres around from Melbourne's goal. They lead by 50 points.
Favourites winning both games. It's Carlton by 27 points over the Eagles. 10 minutes into the second. Melbourne by 50 here. 9 goals to 1. 9 minutes into the second. Forward 50 stoppage for Melbourne. Boundary throwing. Goldstein in front, wins it down, but his opposing ruckman, Shackey, grabs it. Hand pass away to Hunter. He got it out to Sparrow. Was he clipped high? He was. Free kick for Melbourne. In fact, it's going to be Jack Viney. He gets the free kick and the high tackle from Aaron Hall. And Viney will take it sort of out wide, 47 metres from goal to man on the mark, and he's only 3 metres in from the boundary. Take a good kick from here. Of course, playing against his dad's team tonight. Son of Todd Viney, 233 games with Melbourne, and now the footy boss, working with Alistair Clarkson at North Melbourne and his son Jack. Best of field in the Anzac Day Eve game on Monday night, the 29-year-old. Left peg against the fence. It'll be a hell of a kick. He's got it in him, though, as he kicks right to the goal line. It's thumped through. Landing short, Zeeble kills it. 9-3-1 straight. Melbourne by 51. 10 gone in the second term.
Just the one goal kicked in the second term to Rivers after a double 50-metre penalty against Stevenson. Zeeble from the kick in for North Melbourne. Kicks out wide. Coleman Jones across the pack. Couldn't bring down the mark. Scott at ground level for North Melbourne. He's coughed it up to McVie. His hand pass to Neil Bullen and now to Viney and now to Jordan, all by hand. He tumbles a kick inside the arc. Chandler tried to tap it on, only as far as Hall of North Melbourne. He tries to fend off on Chandler, and it is a free kick going back to Hall. Thought he might have given away a free kick for a high fend off, but he's the recipient, in fact.
Hall, dangerous kick. Too much hang time into the corridor, and Petrarca an easy intercept. Floats through in front of McDonald to take the mark for Melbourne. They're going back inside 50. Neil Bullen's got it on his chest, centre half forward. He moves it on. Chandler all alone, left forward pocket. At about a 15-metre radius from anyone on the ground in the left forward pocket for the D's.
Well, it's just so hard to defend a turnover through the corridor. And the transitional game from there is pretty hard for the defensive transitional game for North Melbourne. It's pretty really hard. So it's just a lower the eyes. It's pretty basic, to be fair, but it's all based off that turnover. When you're so heavily involved in offence and then a turnover like that comes, generally hurts you the other way.
Cade Chandler, left footer, left peg against the boundary line. He moves in, no problems with that. It is one-way traffic at the G. Melbourne's lead grows to 57 points. And we're only 12 minutes into the second term. 10-3 to 1 straight. Chandler with the second. Luke Ball, Brendan Goddard, Grandstand AFL.
Yeah, it's been a pretty common theme of this Kangaroos team over the last 3 or 4 weeks. You recall that Brisbane game in Adelaide where they just turned the ball over consistently through the middle of the ground. And the Brisbane players, whether you call it cheating, just reading the play, just realising what was going to happen, early cues, and maybe just holding the ground. They took 30 marks inside 50.
Yeah, 33 inside 50, which
That's
is
right.
amazing.
Yeah. So Kyle Chandler smart enough to read the cues there and find himself in plenty of space, and he's a beautiful kick for goal, isn't he?
Doesn't miss much, does he?
Yeah, he nails them.
Up to 12 goals now for the season for Cade Chandler, the 23-year-old.
Yeah, really good.
And 3 multiple goal kickers for Melbourne already. Fritsch with 3, Pickett and Chandler with 2 each.
Well, it's just allowing Cozzy Pickett to play more midfield time. We know Charlie Spargo's probably in their best 22, isn't he? He's not out there at the moment, but yeah, he's just slotted into that role nicely.
So we've got a secondary bounce in the middle. Goldstein against Gawn. Down to Zurha in the middle, who jams it on the boot and wobbles it inside forward 50 for North Melbourne. That bounces past Larkey. Out the back, it's all Melbourne. Hibberd collects, sweeping hand pass to Hunter at left half back, chips it down the line. Petrarca read it best. He plays on now. He's run into a bit of trouble. Has to hand pass defensively to Hunter, close up against the boundary line. Kicks down the line. Shaki in a one-on-one. Bounces past him. Core does the defensive work for North. Hand passes to McDonald, then to Simpkin. McDonald gets it back from the defensive 50 arc. He chips it into the corridor where he finds Cunnington at centre half back.
He looks across the ground. In the end, he gives the hand pass to a runner in Luke McDonald. And he kicks out to a set of one-on-ones out of that southern wing for North Melbourne. Free kick for Paul Curtis. His first major involvement was held by Hibberd. Looks for Larkey, kicks it over his head. Curtis, that's Curtis Taylor in the forward pocket. That's the problem when you have a Paul Curtis and a Curtis Taylor. In the end, the ball's out of play as Taylor is pushed out of bounds, so we'll have a throw-in. Left forward pocket for the Roos at the City end. We're just getting some shots of Charlie Comben, who's had the green whistle. He's been loaded into the back of the ambulance, so unfortunately the 21-year-old with a suspected broken leg off to hospital.
Ball flicked back into play. Gawn wonderfully taps it down to Sparrow, who rushes a kick around the corner. Chandler in the contest against Howe almost brings in a great mark, follows up at ground level, shares it with Grundy, who has to hand pass it into space. Running after it is Turner of North Melbourne. He's run down by Chandler. Umpire says no prior opportunity. We've got a stoppage on the outer side wing. Melbourne by 57. Jess Webster and Corbin Middlemass calling the action this evening. Luke Ball, Brendan Goddard, your experts, and Karen Peterson on the boundary.
16 minutes into the second quarter in Perth. Still Carlton by 27 over West Coast. From the ball up, Goldstein comes up with it. Hand pass away to Simpkin. Got the glove on again, protecting that hand as he kicks to half forward. In front, Lever takes the intercept mark. In front of Taylor. Pulls the trigger into the corridor. Daring kick. Got it to Neil Bullen eventually. Juggled marks paid. Floats a hand pass to Hibberd, who runs alongside him. Hand pass out in front of Rivers. Paddles it in front of himself. Feeds a hand pass to Petrarca as he's tackled. Kicks straight to low. Marks top of the defensive goal square for North Melbourne. D's by 57. 15 played second quarter.
Lowe kicks it out wide to Goldstein, who's marked in the left back pocket. Played game number 300 last week in their loss to Gold Coast. He chips it forward to Sheasel. He was kept to a low disposal count last week. I think it was 11 off memory. He kicks it back to Ben Mackay at the top of the defensive goal square. He flares it out wide to the other back pocket where he finds Aidan Core. They're all still inside defensive 50 North Melbourne. Core now sends it long down the line. He was bumped after he kicked it, so it's going to be a free kick downfield to Nick Larkey. He's coming up for his first disposal of the night. He kicks long down the line. It's knocked away from Taylor. And D's through Hunter, and now Brayshaw kicks backwards to McVie.
McVie goes laterally to Oliver. Let's check Clayton Oliver's count. He's up to 18 for the night. A dominant opening quarter. Looked like he was headed for a record number with 16 in the first term. Melbourne worked the ball to James Jordan. He's got the footy in front of the interchange. Kicks to half forward. Nathan Core floats in front of Gawn to take the intercept mark. Core goes short to Liam Shields. On his 32nd birthday. Has it at half back. He's going to chip it back inside the defensive arc. From Merv off the SMS. G'day guys, loving the coverage. Does Clarkson have to answer for these poor performances, or has he a free ride this year and no criticism?
Free ride.
Free pass, Paulie?
Let's talk about it at half time.
Oh, okay. Howe's got the footy for North Melbourne. He goes short to Hall at half back.
What we're looking for here is just a bit of system in their ball movement. Okay, so they're a bit spooked by what we think is the top 2 team in the competition, but this sideways, chip sideways, double switch now. Look at all their players out of position now. And look at the Melbourne players, conversely, adjusting to this. And so Stevenson will look up now. It's a lovely kick.
Kick call on the play, Paulie.
Yeah,
Stevenson, he chases after it.
Oh,
and it's a free kick advantage paid. Stevenson, he kicks it to centre half forward.
Beautiful.
And they've got a mark just inside forward 50 to Darcy Tucker. He's reeled in the mark 48 metres from home, pretty much directly in front.
Exactly how they drew it up.
But just explain that, though. So the running patterns in particular is what you're looking at there,
yeah? Well, so they have shown a desire to switch the play. So they win the slow play here on one pocket, and all their defenders fan out to the other side. But there's no sort of second phase running off the back of that. Usually, if you want to switch, you want to switch to a person who can play on and attack the open side of the ground, whereas they're going back sideways, and it just plays into the hands of this Melbourne team defence.
Darcy Tucker traded to the Roos on a 3-year deal from 50. He's pulled it to the right-hand side for a minor. Melbourne 10-3-63, North Melbourne 1-1-7. The lead's 56, 18 played second term.
Hibbert marks the kick out. He goes long to the wing. Van Rooyen with a huge set. Couldn't complete the mark. Falls down to Tucker for the Roos. Hand pass to Cunnington. Kicks inside 50. Roos wanted a free kick. Delarkey, they're not getting it. Zerhard tackled by Brayshaw. Throws it. Free kick with a milestone man, Angus Brayshaw, in game 150.
But also by making the ground so big, Bally, when you do turn the ball over or forced to kick it long down the line, you generally don't have numbers when you double switch him, because the forwards in front of you, they can't run 150 metres and can't run faster than the ball. So when you do turn it over, because there's so much space.
McVie dangerous out of defence. Goldstein punches it down to Curtis. Hand pass to Larkey. He can walk one in. Snaps it through for North Melbourne. There's been very few of those so far tonight. Larkey kicks North's second goal at the 19-minute mark of the second term. They are playing way uphill. Melbourne by 50, 10-3 to 2-1.
Speaking of turnovers, a bit of an uncharacteristic skill error there from the D's, but well done, the Kangaroos. They were alert to it, and really the first forward 50, certainly turnover for them this game. So well done. They get a bit of reward for effort. Nick Larkey, he's just going to have to work today. He's just going to have to work hard. We know that at his best he does that, but up against Lever and May, it's just going to be a day where he's just going to have to keep presenting, getting in line with the ball, creating a contest. And hopefully some rewards like that will come.
Well, he just needs to rely on his other forwards too to be smart enough to engage, Lever in particular, because I don't think there's too many contests the Melbourne defenders have in defensive 50 they don't have support in the air with.
From the middle, Viney soccers it forward to half forward. Sparrow shares it in a one-on-one with Oliver, and then a beautiful delivery inside 50 to Petrarca, who marks 47 metres out from goal in front.
Time on second term in Perth. Carlton by 34, so the favourites winning both games on Saturday night. 8-8 to 3-4 in the West.
12 disposals and 5 inside 50 so far tonight for Christian Petrarca. He's going to line up for his first goal of the evening. A measured approach. He'll start his run up from inside the centre square. Luke McDonald stands on the mark, probably about 45 out from goal. Petrarca crosses the arc, shoots towards goal, and it's flawless. The D's with the quick reply. And the margin's back out to 56, 11-3-69. North Melbourne 2-1-13. 20 played. Second term on Grandstand AFL. Your experts are Luke Ball and Brendan Goddard.
Well, at least they're making more of a game of it, aren't they? So that North Melbourne, but that again, just too easy. The ball coming out of centre square bounce from a turnover goal. A good bit of play from North Melbourne to get that one, and then it just came out too easy. You find Uncontested mark for Petrarca in the middle, but the ball coming in wasn't under pressure. Sparrow had too much time and space to make a really good decision, so just needs to be more heat on the ball, but at least they look likely in general play now, and Melbourne aren't playing that free-flowing kind of training like drill football from the back half.
8 goals to 1 in the first quarter, 3 goals to 1 in the second so far. Almost into the last 5 minutes before half-time, 22 gone in the term. Another free kick for a ruck infringement against Coleman Jones. Grundy to take it and then sells the dummy around Coleman Jones. Kicks inside 50, spoilt by Sheasel of the Roos. Here's Van Rooyen, collects it half forward, hand pass away to Petrarca, trying to get back on his right side. Hand pass to Grundy, still outside 50, gives it to Jordan, shoots a hand pass over his shoulder to Petrarca. Petrarca retreats back, looking to try and trying to find McVie with the kick. Gets to him eventually. Jordan, hand pass to McVie. Goes back to Hibberd. High bomb inside 50. Gone in the pack. Slides through a number of players. And Griffin Logue, hand pass to Core. Hurried handball to Mackay, who can kick out of the defensive arc.
He rushes the kick outside defensive 50 and it's intercepted by Grundy. He's got it at left half forward. Pretty crowded forward 50. Stevenson stands the mark for the Roos. Grundy wheels in board and then ships it into the pocket. Gawn's in the pack. It spills to Petrarca, who loops a hand pass looking for Neil Bullen. And on the second attempt, gets his hands to it. He's tackled by Cunnington. Plenty of numbers around the ball at the top of the square, and the umpire calls for it. Melbourne by 56, and they've got a stoppage deep inside their forward 50.
Up it goes, punt right into the ground. Gawn swats it down, Cunnington grabs it, they all grab him, and a ball up, 15 out from the Melbourne goal.
There's good pressure though by North the last couple of minutes, at least forcing the entry from Melbourne to be high and long to a contest.
Gawn doing the ruck work, knocks it out in front of Oliver, snaps, kick smothered by Core. Oliver gets a second go, hand pass to Van Rooyen, he's caught. Just as the Melbourne fans started to get their Roo chant going, free kick for North Melbourne, and Sheasel chips it to the top of the defensive goal square. McDonald, too casual. Neil Bullen got him, and then Neil Bullen just can bang it through for a sensational goal. The defensive chase caught McDonald napping, and then punts it through to add more pain to the night for North Melbourne. In a moment, their captain won't want to see that. The Demons 12-3, 75. North Melbourne 2-1-13. New game high. It's Melbourne by 62 points. Time on in the second.
It's a good sign, isn't it? I mean, they're dominating the game, but even more senior players like Alex Neil-Bullen still dog hungry, chasing, tackling, and he's just become such a reliable player for them, hasn't he? He'd be a coach favourite, you'd think, one of the first picked every week. He's just going to do the job, do the role. Again, lack of awareness from Lukey McDonald.
But
that's from him.
That's what real intensity looks like when you're trying to apply pressure. So it's almost like Luke McDonald didn't expect it to come so fast and he had more time. So when you actually put in the hard yards and actually the real intent just to get a fingernail in there makes a huge difference.
From the restart, here they go again, Melbourne, this time through Pickett, who kicks it into the pocket. And Zeeble gets back for North Melbourne, tries to fend off Sparrow close to the line. And the umpire says, throw it in. Ball in, 30 around from Melbourne's goal. So it was a pretty even first half of the second term. Melbourne have got the last two to bring up a new game-high margin from the throw-in. Ball spills to Zeeble. Gets around on the right boot. Exits the danger zone, but it's going to come back as Brayshaw marks it right half forward.
27-year-old. 65th Melbourne player to reach 150 club games. He goes across the ground to Lever. And he swings the kick from one flank to the other to May, who's hit up and marked 60 out left half forward. Pokes a pass inside the attacking 50. Gawn coming through like a steam train. Goes out the back to Pickett. Somehow got a hand pass to Fritsch over his shoulder. Back to Pickett. And in the end, Howe knocks it out of play. We'll have a throw in forward pocket for the D's. Carlton have it out by 40, by the way, in Perth over West Coast, so just approaching half-time there, 2 minutes before the break. We're deep into time on here in the second quarter as well. The Demons by 62 over North.
Throwing in Melbourne's attacking 50. Gawn palms it down through the hands of Chandler, and it's going to go out of bounds, and we'll do it all again, this time 40 around from the D's goal.
Big night for Marcus in South Melbourne. BJ off the SMS. BJ, when did you last play in a team that lost to North Melbourne? My friends and I are trying to guess.
That's going to test you?
We had a pretty good record against North. I'm going to say potentially it was 2000. It was 2000. I won't say it was, but we definitely lost to North Melbourne 2016 when I was at Essendon.
From the throw in, Hall's under pressure. He gets boot to ball, scrambles a kick outside defensive 50. Grundy attempts the intercept for Melbourne and then has a fumble. Howe picks it up and ran into Grundy. So we've got a stoppage at left half forward for Melbourne.
Prompt you to get on the search there, Corbin.
I'm on it, straight on to AFL tables.
I don't think we beat North that year. We won 2 games, I think, and it was Melbourne and Gold Coast. I'm pretty sure.
From the stoppage, Grundy's given away a free kick this time and 50, not giving the ball back in time to Coleman Jones, who's going to be marched to half forward.
I was about to give him a little pump up, Brodie Grundy. Just the way he's covering the ground and he's attacking the ball, but
umpires are not having any of this tonight, are they? A couple of 50-metre penalties for dissent, and now Coleman Jones sends it to a dangerous position for North. It's knocked away from Shields. Taylor roves, gives it to Zerha, now to Scott, who hand passes defensively to Tucker from the arc. Hand passes inboard to Bailey Scott. The outside of the boot towards the line. It's touched for a rushed behind. Melbourne 12-3-75. North Melbourne 2-2-14, margin 61.
May on the kick out, goes short to Rivers in the back pocket. A good recall, Beach, round 8, 2016. Your overall record against North, though, is only 12-8. Head-to-head against North Melbourne. The kick out at the defensive 50 comes to Brayshaw. Hand pass ends up with Sheasel. Sheasel hand pass away to Shields. 70 out, kicks to the hot spot. May left it for the voice behind him. It sits up for Curtis. Curtis is tackled front on by May. Says ball up. 15 out from the North Melbourne goal.
I'd say most of those were at Essendon. Right. Another, for memory, we lost in the final in 14, was it?
I remember that.
Right here, yeah. Up by 6 goals or something.
Frank
you remember?
Petrie.
Yeah. In touch for 3 quarters and then kicked a couple in the last.
Grundy knocks it away to Langdon. Langdon's tackled. Ball comes out. Zerha grabs it, turns, bangs it goalward, but misses. Across the face, behind. 12-3 to 2-3. A 60-point lead for Melbourne as we tick towards half-time. The SMS number 0437 774 774. But we may need a little bit of your input in the second half, the way this is headed. 12 goals to 2. Corbin Middlemass, Jess Webster,
input to what, mate?
Brendan Cotter, Luke Ball and Kieran Peterson, your call team.
As much as we can.
May with the kick-in finds Oliver in the pocket coming up for disposal number 23.
Quarter.
Sends it high down the line of a contest. Gawn roves, tumbles a kick down the wing, bounces past Fritsch coming through Van Rooyen, attacks the contest hard. He's stripped at the footy, umpire says play on. Powell is also dispossessed. And it spills to Jordan, who gives it to Chandler, and now to Pickett from centre half forward. Sees a vacant goal square. Fritsch Shepherd's on the line, and the D's add another. Pickett has 3. Melbourne has 13. They move to 13-3, 81 to North 2-3-15. 29 played, second term grandstand AFL.
Well, you're not going to kick a career high, Bailey Fritsch, letting that one through and not marking it, but
it was the right thing to do. He would have marked that last year.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's a little change in, but I agree. I agree. Yeah, that's right. And you could. I thought he was going to, because our oval ball that could bounce anywhere. But good on him. He took the chance and shepherded it through, and he'll feel good about himself for doing that. His teammate kicking a goal.
And it's just yeah. I only have to. I know Pickett's got some league speed about him, as does Aaron Hall, but just sagging off him a little bit too much at a contest.
Can't let it goal side either, can you?
Yeah, and then you got to be close enough to close that down and apply pressure on him.
Restart back in the middle. Melbourne going forward again. Chandler knocks it on, but straight to Zeeble. Hand pass away to Powell. He gives it off to Sheasel. Kicks wide. Howe has a fumble. Put himself under the pump. Knocks it out to Core. Off the back flank. Kicks looking for Stevenson. And Trent Rivers works his way to the front. Takes the intercept mark. The leg tap coming out of the sock. Trent Rivers goes along to the top of the goal square. Fritsch flies for it, no mark. Falls through to Core again. Hurried kick to half-back. Tucker spills the mark. Now he's in trouble. Tackled by Petrarca. Says ball up.
No prior.
Happy with that?
Yep.
60 out for the Melbourne goal. Final 6 ticks on the clock before half-time. Gawn wins the hit-out. Comes down to Tucker. Scoops up a hand pass to Howe. And that'll do us. The Demons in attack mode in that first half. They kicked the first 6 goals of the night. They kicked 10 of the first 11. And at half-time, they lead by 11 goals. 13-3, 81 North Melbourne 2-3-15. The honeymoon period under Alistair Clarkson is well and truly over. After winning their first 2 games, they're on a 4-game losing skid. And in game number 5 of that run, they're 66 points down at half-time. 13-3 to 2-3. The goal kickers in that half of footy, Fritsch and Pickett, both have 3 each, 2 for Chandler, and then singles for Petrarca, Grundy, Rivers, Neil Bullen and Sparrow. While for North Melbourne, 1 for Larkey, 1 for Zerha. Melbourne by 66 at half-time. Half-time in Perth as well. Carlton by 40 points over the West Coast Eagles, so 9-8-62. And the Big Birds are 3-4-22, so a 40-point lead for Carlton at half-time. Little huddle for North Melbourne. Simpkin and McDonald, their captains, just getting the group in, and both teams now jogging towards their locker room at the the western end of the ground, towards the city end of the stadium. Luke Ball and Brennan Goddard with us on Grandstand AFL at half-time. It's Melbourne by 66.
You want us to give a summary of that? Do we?
Just your very best 90 seconds.
Well, it was at times it was just a training drill for Melbourne, in particular the first quarter and their ball movement, just doing what they liked and as they pleased. So if you could literally write it up and say, how do we want to move the ball and what we're working on at training, a lot of those ball movement drills you do at training were evident tonight. So that was just lack of pressure on the ball, getting out marked in the D50 and not being able to find your opponent or being near him in transition when you're actually winning the ball. So that's a big thing, right? When you're actually moving the ball on offence, players have to make a decision. Can I influence the next play offensively? And if I can't, what am I doing next? And it's generally you're setting up the ground defensively, or you're finding your man if you're in the vicinity of the ball. So if it does get turned over, when the opposition do look up, particularly off a quick turnover, they've got nothing to go to. Then you slow them down. Then you're buying time for your teammates to get back in play and guys to readjust if they are caught out. But generally, you might get away with a couple of guys snoozing in that, but generally everyone in play has to be close enough to their man. So when the ball is turned over from Melbourne, it was literally just back the other end, and North Melbourne couldn't lay a hand on Melbourne. So a little bit better the first 10 minutes of that quarter, but again, just their efficiency when they do go forward and out of clearances, walking out the front of stoppages. And again, you don't have to be off by much. Melbourne are up and about, clearly. So they came here, made mention off a 5-day break, North off a 6-day, so there's no real excuses there. Melbourne are in a worse boat there. So what do you want to see if you're a North supporter? Just I think you just have to look at it for just a quarter. If you're the third quarter, anyway, we used to talk about as simple as it, just win this quarter, because you're thinking about bigger picture. Bally wanted to talk about it. Maybe I'll pass it over to him now, just about your question earlier about is it a free hit for Alistair Clarkson this year. But the supporters still want to see progress. They still want to see, and particularly they know they're a young team, but they still want to see their team fight it out, intensity, effort, and they can accept, that you get done from week to week. But generally, when you come out here and see a lack of intensity, in particular in the first quarter, and you know what you're up against. North Melbourne, everyone coming here, Melbourne, Premier 2 years ago, they're up and about this year. They were stung off last year's performance, out in straight sets. A couple of really good weeks they've had. They knew what they were coming into, so they can't say at any point that they were underprepared and they didn't know what they were walking into.
Yeah, I think that's it. The numbers show that, they've out-tackled. Melbourne have had 60 more possessions. The numbers show they've had 31, but it hasn't felt like that, has it? It hasn't felt like there's been enough pressure on Melbourne around the immediate contest. But then, as you said, Beej, on the turnover and on the spread, Melbourne have just they're playing a different game on the turnover, aren't they? And we speak a lot about Melbourne's team defence being the benchmark, I think, in a sense, and it's going to be a tough day for this young North Melbourne forward line. They're going to learn a lot today, but when they have turned it over, it's just been way too easy, and I think that's what you'd love to see in this second half. They did it for a little bit in that second quarter. They just need to be able to do it for a little bit longer. If they're not going to win it around the immediate contest and apply that sort of pressure,
which they arguably didn't want to, because they allowed Melbourne, particularly in the first quarter, extra around the ball, and they wanted the support behind the ball. But when you're allowing the ball to come out of clearances so easily, like we've made mention, then your spare just gets bypassed, and you can't really apply the pressure, and they're not getting what they want, so you're putting your defenders under too much pressure, even with a spare.
Yeah, so it's a real challenge, isn't it, for Alistair and the coach. Tonight, particularly with this this Melbourne team, and we know the reality is that Melbourne are an absolute premiership bona fide contender this year, and North Melbourne are where they are, but the gaps look really stark tonight, doesn't it?
So if you're a North Melbourne fan and you flick on and you think, here we go, it's same old story, we're getting rolled again.
Well, generally what you see is a young team is that they can maybe get maybe 2.5, 3 quarters out of it, and they fall away against the really good teams just through their inability to sustain effort for long periods and concentration.
Like Hawthorn today.
Yeah, correct.
You turn on today, Hawthorn.
Hawthorn the last, say, 3 or 4 weeks.
Exactly. Yeah, who are certainly tracking a very similar path, aren't they, to this North team? To me, both effort and the last couple of weeks, both effort and sort of method system, there's been even a gap between Hawthorn and what North have put out over the last couple of weeks.
Ooh. Sam Mitchell will be happy to hear that.
Well, considering the criticism that Mitch and Hawthorn got within the first 2-3 weeks, and they're tanking, it's embarrassment.
So at the start of the third quarter, what do you want to see from North Melbourne? If you're looking for sort of 1 or 2 major things that you want to see an adjustment immediately after half-time.
Well, there's a real desire to work and give great effort. And I love when people say, oh, like, it's not that hard to give great effort. But the compounding issue backing on week 7 now. It becomes harder and harder as the weeks go on and the year goes on. So, yes, it should be a given, but then footy's a lot more complicated than that. There are guys out here that they're trying, we understand that, but there's... And your mate loves it. There's trying and there's really trying.
Well, and there's Alex Neil-Bullen chasing down when they're 10 goals up late in the second quarter, and he could easily just corral and let that exit kick.
Yeah.
Or, no, I'm going to actually dive and get rewarded.
And you could say there's some underlying kind of cultural things there that's what, Melbourne really reward and they highlight during the week and all that kind of thing. North is still developing and learning, but when you've got a strong culture and being really successful, they're the things that really, that foundation to any great team.
Luke Ball and Brendan Goddard with us on Grandstand AFL. Corbin Middlemass and Jess Webster calling the footy. Karen Peterson on the boundary. It's Melbourne by 66 points at half-time. Over in Perth, Carlton lead by 40 points and Charlie Curnow's kicked 4 of their goals to half-time. More of your text messages in just a moment. There's plenty of big news kicking around the AFL world as well with the announcement today by the federal government. The $240 million is on the way for the Macquarie Point redevelopment, which paves the way for a 19th licence in the AFL. More on all of that in just a moment, but in the meantime, let's get the latest from the ABC Newsroom.
Hello, this is ABC News with David Rowlands. The Federal Greens have flagged legislation to freeze rent prices for 2 years and allow the government to stop the Reserve Bank from raising interest rates. The Greens' proposal would mean that states that agree to implement rental freezes for 2 years and cap increases after that would become eligible to double their housing funding from the Commonwealth. It would also strengthen the existing powers of the Treasurer to overrule the independent RBA and freeze interest rates. It comes after Prime Minister Anthony Albanese announced National Cabinet had agreed to examine protections for renters across the country. The Tasmanian Premier Jeremy Rockliff says a purpose-built stadium on Hobart's Macquarie Point is set to deliver the state its own club in the AFL competition. Mr Rockliff and Prime Minister Albanese this morning announced Tasmania will receive $240 million in next month's federal budget towards the stadium on the Hobart waterfront. The arena is required for the AFL to deliver Tasmania its own AFL team and the 19th licence in the competition. Mr Rockliff says the stadium and the surrounding precinct will be a major attraction.
That all Tasmanians can be truly proud of. And it can deliver, absolutely. That long-held, decades-old dream of having our own team singing our own song in our own colours.
Russian officials have confirmed an oil facility is ablaze in the port city of Sevastopol in Russian-occupied Crimea following a suspected drone strike. More from the BBC's Hugo Bachega in Ukraine.
Dozens of firefighters are at the scene in Kozacha Bay to bring the massive blaze under control. No one has been injured. The fire happens 5 days after Russian officials said they had fended off a drone attack by the Ukrainian military in the same area. Crimea has come under repeated attacks since the start of the war. This is the peninsula that Russia annexed in 2014 and that Ukraine has vowed to retake. In the town of Uman, search and rescue efforts continue at a block of flats, a day after it was hit by a Russian missile. 23 people were killed, including 4 children.
An extended ceasefire in Sudan appears to have broken down, with heavy fighting reported. Clashes between rival military factions have killed more than 500 people and wounded another 2,000 over the past fortnight. The World Health Organisation's Regional Emergency Director, Dr. Richard Brennan, says the fighting has had a big impact on the country's health services.
It's been extremely difficult to resupply the hospitals and clinics. We've been able to confirm at least 28 attacks on healthcare. Military forces now are occupying a couple of hospitals. They're now occupying the Central Public Health Laboratory.
2 people have appeared in Perth Magistrates Court today facing charges relating to a security scare at Woodside's annual general meeting. Authorities say suspicious gas canisters were seized near where the AGM was taking place in Perth yesterday. The discovery sparked the involvement of the State Security Investigation Group and the arrest of 2 men and a woman. A 34-year-old woman and a 31-year-old man have been charged with aggravated burglary with intent on place. The third man has been released pending further investigation. Local religious leaders in Indonesia say an Australian man has spat on an imam at a mosque in Bandung on the main island of Java. Indonesia correspondent Ann Barker has more.
Islamic leaders at the Jami al-Muhajir Mosque in Bandung say a foreigner entered around 6 a.m. yesterday and approached the imam at the pulpit, who was listening to verses from the Quran being read over a loudspeaker. They say he was caught on CCTV vision. Suddenly, he was seen spitting right into the imam's face while swearing loudly. The imam immediately fled and later said the man was apparently disturbed by the noise of the chanting. He says the man had been staying at a hotel nearby, but when they checked later, he'd gone. Ann Barker, ABC News, Jakarta.
A budget airline flight from Sydney to Singapore has been diverted to Adelaide. Flight TR3, operated by Scoot, left Sydney Airport at 1:30 this afternoon. Passengers on board told the ABC that the plane had to be grounded in Adelaide, according to the pilots. And in sport, Sydney FC has set up an A-League men's elimination final against Western Sydney Wanderers with a 2-0 victory over Newcastle. The Sky Blues finished 5th on the ladder with the win, which came thanks to goals to Adam Lafondra and Patrick Wood. Wellington also secured finals football this season with a 1-0 defeat of Macarthur. The Phoenix will meet Adelaide in the first week of the finals. This is ABC News.
For extreme entertainment, stream comedy whenever you like on ABC iView. That's so cool. Extreme feel-goods with Ghosts, Ronnie Cheng, international student, and Summer Love.
Never hold back, kids.
Extreme funnies from the Melbourne International Comedy Festival.
That means a lot.
And extreme good times with Starstruck, Peep Show, and Fisk.
Why would you say that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's Extreme Comedy Gold.
So cool.
And you can stream it all for free on ABC iView.
Grandstand AFL.
Now streaming every match on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
Jaden Stevenson has given a 100-metre penalty a certainty for Rivers, who can pop it through from the top of the goal square. Kate Chandler, left footer, left peg against the boundary line. He moves in, no problems with that. It is one-way traffic at the G. McVee dangerous out of defence. Goldstein punches it down to Curtis. Hand pass to Larkey. He can walk one in. Snaps it through for North Melbourne.
Petrarca crosses the arc, shoots towards goal, and it's flawless.
Free kick for North Melbourne, and Sheasel chips into the top of the defensive goal square. McDonald, too casual. Neil Bullen got him, and then Neil Bullen just can bang it through for a sensational goal.
Jordan, who gives it to Chandler, and now to Pickett from centre half forward, sees a vacant goal square. Fritz Shepherd's on the line, and the D's add another.
The 2023 AFL season.
On radio,
ABC Sport Digital.
and now streaming on the ABC Listen app.
Sounds there from the second term. It was more of the same for Melbourne. In that quarter, they kicked 5-1 after they kicked 8-1 in the opening quarter. You throw that all together, it's 13-2, and it's Melbourne by 66 points at half-time. Saturday night footy at the MCG. Meanwhile, the game between Carlton and West Coast, it's half-time there as well in Perth, and it is the Blues with Charlie Curnow kicking 4 first-half goals. They lead West Coast by 40 points. The other action, Saturday of round 7, our first Friday, Saturday, Sunday round of the season so far. It's going to continue in this pattern, by the way, for the next 5 or 6 weeks. Saturday afternoon, footy, Brisbane by 8 goals over Fremantle. Will Ashcroft and Sonny Walters, Jess, arguably kicked the best and second best goals of the season so far in the space of about half an hour.
And there's heaps of highlights in that game. Dunkley took a hanger as well. There's plenty happening. But Ashcroft's goal was Daniel Wells-esque, but from tied up against the boundary line in the back pocket. It just defied physics. It was unbelievable.
Amazing. So if you remember that goal, which we were a bit shocked to learn, that was 20 years ago.
That's certainly making me feel old now.
It has to go 20 years ago since Daniel Wells grabbed the ball mid-air, jammed it on the boot. It happened again today. Young Will Ashcroft in his second season, the teenager for Brisbane. In his first season, the teenager for Brisbane, obviously drafted last year. Got it in the forward pocket, jammed it on his right boot and floated through from the forward pocket. He was outside the line of the behind post, so it was on a sharp angle and kicked a superb goal. Brisbane winners by 48. Toby Green did it again for the Giants, so got home by a point GWS, having trailed by 4 goals in the last quarter. And the Western Bulldogs by 29. They trailed at half-time, kicked 7 goals to 2 thereafter. And interestingly, they didn't use their technical sub at all. So Toby McLean, who was a premiership player, obviously with the Dogs back in 2019, he was the sub today, Luke Ball, and he was still sitting there in the warm-up top at the end of full-time, was not used at all. The only sub this year that hasn't been activated.
Don't know how you'd feel about that, wouldn't you? I don't know. Does it count as a game?
It's definitely a game,
count,
but to what end?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's sort of.
I just feel like there's no regardless of where you are, whether you're 15 goals up, 15 goals down, with the way the sub is now, there's no excuse not to use them at all, isn't there? If you're 15 goals down, we'll give whoever it is a bit of a run and see if they can have a last quarter at it.
Things are running smoothly, everyone's playing their
exactly.
role. I mean,
exactly. You're 15 goals up. Like tonight, let's get who's you can bet Melbourne will do it. Yep. Probably soon.
Harms is the sub.
2 games in 5 days. Okay, let's get one of our Ferraris off and put him in the shed for next week. It's bizarre, isn't it? It's like he's forgotten. It's like he's playing forgotten.
Happened to me once in a netball game. Didn't quite get over it.
Never got on?
No.
Jeez.
That's all right,
that's no good at all.
That's why I'm in the commentary box.
We'll have a listen out to see what Luke Beveridge has to say about that. But an unusual episode in the Bulldogs' victory, celebrating Marcus Bontempelli's 200th game. The big news today in footy is that Anthony Albanese was in Hobart committing $240 million to the Macquarie Point redevelopment. It includes a state-of-the-art stadium, but also housing and private investment in that part of the world. Conditional on the state's bid of the 19th licence was the stadium, so really paves the way for the formal vote from the club presidents, which is anticipated to come next week. The Prime Minister pointed out today that Hobart is the second driest city, and so it doesn't necessarily need to have a roof. So even though it's cold and windy, there's not a heap of rainfall in those parts. Mitch Cleary was on Channel 7 tonight to say there is plans for a roof, but it won't be retractable. So it'll almost be similar to Forsyth Bar Stadium in New Zealand, in Dunedin, which basically is almost like a big greenhouse. It has sort of a perspex roof over the top of it.
Well, does that restrict the ability to host other sports? Was that part of the problem, though?
Yeah, so that'll be a problem for cricket so you can't host a test match under a roof, the way that the ICC rules are at the
unless
moment.
it's a certain height.
I don't think at all. So you can host limited overs games, like we've seen at Docklands here, but you can't host a test match with a roof.
And why is that?
Like cricket, because of the way it's always been. But there is some talk that will change, hopefully, in the not-too-distant future. Karen Peterson's on the boundary for us. I mentioned earlier, Kez is also a fully qualified and professional physio. And you've got some news for us, Kez, on, unfortunately, the leg injury for Charlie Comben earlier in the night.
Yeah, thanks, Corby. Just to repeat, a really devastating injury that suspected lower leg fracture. Unsure at the moment just of the severity of it, but unfortunately for Charlie Comben, it's actually his 3rd leg fracture. So North fans might remember that in 2021 he had a right tibial stress fracture, which kept him out of footy for a long time. But prior to being drafted, he also suffered a fractured tibia and a kneecap in 2018 when he was playing school basketball. So there is bad luck, and then there's bad luck Charlie Comben style. So fingers well and truly crossed, thinking of Charlie Comben tonight.
Thanks, Kez. It was so bad, the break, that Channel 7 chose not to replay it. I did speak to some people out in the print media room and that saw the pictures from the truck. That there was a clear break there of potentially at least one bone and the lower part of his leg, which was almost hanging by a thread. So a gruesome incident in the first quarter for Charlie Comben. Second half underway here. Melbourne by 66. You're with Jess Webster.
They win it out of the middle again. Grundy down to Jordan. Grundy down to Jordan. Back to Grundy. Kicks inside 50 and Zeeble takes the intercepting mark for the Roos. Kicks laterally to Scott. Inside defensive 50 and chips it to Taylor, who presents at left half back. Melbourne piled on 81 points in that first half. Just a couple of goals to North as Taylor kicks long down the line. May's in position A and just completes the mark. The umpire says he held it for long enough. True centre wing position. Members side of the MCG on a beautiful evening. A cool, clear night at 11 degrees. Melbourne well in control as May pumps them back towards half forward. A pack forms. Goldstein got hands to it. It spills to Zeeble, who's tackled into the turf by Shaki illegally. Got into his back. So free kick to Zeeble in the defensive 50.
Zeeble retreats. Goes back to Aaron Hall. Marks top of the defensive goal square. He's just going to chip across the last line of defence to McDonald and goes with a short pass to Sheasel, who marks still in the defensive arc. You mentioned earlier North Melbourne only played 8 games here since that 2015 final against Richmond, which is the second fewest in the competition for any team in terms of games at the MCG during that period. Only the Gold Coast Suns have played here less since the end of 2015 as the Roos work the ball up the half-back, but they've turned it over as Brayshaw gives it away to Petrarca, kicks inside the forward 50, wanted Van Rooyen over his head, and McDonald takes the intercept mark back pocket. He can go long for the Roos. Up to half-back. The feet of Zerha couldn't collect, spills to Brayshaw. They're about to reload again, the Demons. Hand pass to Petrarca, to Bowie, the redhead, who turns and pumps it to centre half forward. Gorn trying to take the jug with mark, unsuccessful. Comes down to Sheasel, to Zeeble. Hand pass to Hall, and here we go again as he kicks out to half-back.
Yeah, bounce didn't favour Turner. Out the back is Brayshaw of the D's. Gives it to Hunter. Now back to Brayshaw. Hand passes back to Sparrow. He's under pressure. He gives it to Brayshaw from half forward. Elects to kick backwards to Hibbert on the wing. Drops the mark. Has time to recover. Hand passes to Brayshaw. Hand passes along the ground to Sparrow. His hand pass partially deflected. And now it's a turnover. Zerha, he hand passes inboard to Cunnington, who overran it. Bowie out the back. He hand passes to Hunter. Not a great one, who then toes it off the deck. Goes out of bounds. The umpire says throw it in.
Boys just warming up this quarter.
Melbourne by 66.
Touch the footy or run in the half-time break.
The Jew must have said it, maybe.
Haven't missed a whole heap in the first 3 minutes of this third term. Melbourne by 66 as they were at the half. From the boundary throw-in, Grundy wins it down. Cunnington scrapping forward along with Sparrow. Eventually Viney squeezes a kick out, but straight to Sheasel of the Roos. Hand pass to Shields. He's tackled, taken to ground by Jordan. Ball up between wing and half forward.
Really missing the burst of Luke Davies Jr., can't they? Look quite pedestrian around the stoppages, North tonight.
Up it goes from the restart. Goldstein palms it down, but straight to Grundy of the Demons. Hand pass to Viney. Hooks a kick to half forward. Petrarca went at it one-handed. No mark. Now pressure from Howe. He coughs it up. Petrarca and McDonald kicks off the back flank, trying to pinpoint Cunnington. Can't complete the mark. Gets it away to Hall, though, off centre half back. Hand pass to Sheasel. Here's a bit of run and dash. Hand pass away to Tucker. Goes back by hand to Hall. Some indecision. Kicks wide. Taylor drops a mark. Now McVee's got him. Caught holding the ball. Free kick Melbourne right on halfway. Wasn't just not enough O's in smooth, that passage for North Melbourne as McVee goes across the ground to Chandler.
Melbourne's turn. So Chandler, he hand passes inboard to a running May from the centre square. Bombs it towards full forward. Van Rooyen out the back is Shaki. He couldn't take it cleanly. Petrarca shrugs a tackle. Didn't get good connection with the footy. Ball alive at the top of the square. They all dive on top of it. We've got a ball up 15 out from Melbourne's goal. 66-point lead. 8 goals in the first quarter to Melbourne, 5 in the second quarter. Chance deep in attack again as Goldstein palms it down straight to Petrarca, who kicks the easiest goal. Petrarca now has 2, and the lead is beyond 70 points. Melbourne 14-3, 87. North Melbourne 2-3, 15. 5 played third term on Grandson AFL. Luke Ball and Brendan Goddard. Goldstein tapped it beautifully straight to the opposition.
Well, yeah, if you're, I don't think he intended to get it outside the stoppage because I think most ruckmen in your D50, you want to keep it in tight. So unless they've hit it to the same area, because Petrarca looked like he was on the move from the get-go there. And we've seen that before with Clayton Oliver down here. Midway through the second turn, really got on the end of it.
No body on him.
Yeah,
I think
there
it was
you go.
Cunnington there again.
So I'm saying, and even Pickett here just on the forward flank in that first quarter, we talked about they hit corridor, but getting some movement through the stoppage. But you can't say that I don't think they've scouted and seen that before. It's not the first time it's happened, but don't be beaten by what you know.
Melbourne by 12 goals, 5 minutes into the third term. Gawn grabs it out of the ruck, kicks to centre half forward. Knocked away by Sheasel. Then Cunnington knocks it out, but straight to Langdon. Hand pass back into congestion. Cunnington gets another go for North Melbourne. Hand pass to Simpkin. Puts on the Jets. Shakes a would-be tackle from Sparrow. Kicks across the ground, and Scott takes the mark.
There's
shoulders out.
Yeah.
One-on-one ahead of the ball.
Decides to go sideways. Now they've got numbers back. Goes slow.
And goes short to Simpkin. Pokes a kick inside 50. Turns it over. Now Melbourne off the back flank. Lever. Hand pass to Rivers. Gives it to Pickett. Hand pass through to Chandler. Back to Rivers. They weave their way through the North Melbourne defence. Hand pass out to Hunter. Goes back by hand to Rivers. He kicks across the back flank, and Hibbard marks half back.
He continues down the wing. And that's a good mark from Chandler against Sheasel. Centre wing position out of side. Lovely delivery to half forward. Van Rooyen's in space. His 2 kicks from goal at left half forward. Wheels around. Pumps it long to the pocket. And Fritsch couldn't complete the mark. Follows up at ground level. Kicks around the corner for number 4. And this lead just keeps growing. Melbourne 15-3, 93. North Melbourne 2-3-15. The margin 78. We played 7 minutes into the third term on Grandstand AFL.
Well, another goal from turnover that was avoidable. We mentioned it, wasn't it? It was the first time they were able to break free into space out of clearance, out of congestion. Jai Simpkin, who really we think should know better. I mean, he's enough experience to know that he had the ball. He was forward of centre, shoulders out, and he had 2 one-on-ones ahead of the play, so you got to really feel for the North Melbourne forwards there. It's almost like they're a bit spooked to kick long now, to this Melbourne defence, but he had 2 one-on-ones ahead of the play and elected to go short to a 50-50 turnover, in Melbourne, as we know, so damaging on the turnover, but easy sort of one-on-one win there from Bailey Fritsch. Wasn't a great second effort from Aaron Hall there.
Carlton starting to put some space between them and the Eagles as well, so it's 53 points, 10 minutes into the third quarter in Perth. Charlie Curnow has 6. Out of the middle, here goes Simpkin as he kicks to centre half forward for the Roos. May throws his body and his fist at it, knocks it down to McVee, paddles it out of the defensive arc. Howe was involved in the end at Shields, who knocks it inside 50 for North. And after that, Stephen May sort of threw himself at the contest. Coleman Jones has come up a little sore, so he's with the trainer at the moment. Hibbard kicks it to the wing. North win it back, though. Mackay to Tucker, short to Simpkin. And the ump says, just pump the brakes, as Coleman Jones is with 2 trainers inside 50 where the Roos are trying to head.
Yeah, he's going to come off, and his opponent, Stephen May, is going to go back and plonk himself as a +1. So
he's got a bit of an elbow, I think, in the temple. In the jaw.
Does May make contact with the footy there? That's all.
Yeah.
Completely inadvertent.
I think he's winded. He's got him down the side, I think.
Here's Simpkin. He kicks to half forward, out onto the chest of Larkey, who drops to his knees and takes the mark. 35 out, pressed up against the boundary line, left half forward.
First mark inside 50 for the game for North Melbourne.
Wow.
Well done, Nick Larkey. Just work rate got him there, then, didn't it? He had every player back, obviously, but he didn't accept that. He kept moving, kept working, and found a pocket of space. Tough shot.
The Roos leading goal kicker. Larkey.
Well done.
Superb finish. Threads it from out wide. He's got a couple. And what's been a pretty lean night for North Melbourne, and particularly their forwards. 3-3 to 15-3. A 72-point lead for Melbourne. 9 played in the third term. Karen Peterson on the boundary.
No surprises down here, Corby. After that knock with Stephen May, Coleman Jones is headed downstairs. He'll have a concussion test and be out of the game for at least the next 20 minutes.
There's a bit of a claret coming from his face, was there, Kez?
There was earlier in the game, Jess. He went down, had some stitches, I think, under his chin, so he may have reopened that, unless you can see better than I can, and he's opened up somewhere else.
You've certainly got the best vantage point than me at the moment down there, boundary side. Thanks, Kez. Certainly can't afford another injury with Charlie Comben. If you've just joined us out of the game with what appears to be a broken leg of some sort, ankle or otherwise, in the first quarter. So Larky now has a couple of goals. We're back in the middle from the restart. Oliver to Viney. Wobbles a kick towards half forward. Hall playing in front of Pickett, who somehow came up with a footy. Hall has to turn tackler.
That's better.
We've got a stoppage inside the centre square.
Yeah, that's better, Aaron Hall. As Beach said, sometimes you've just got to be a defender. Get up your opponent's backside.
From the stoppage, Tucker wins it at ground level, gives it to Scott, backwards to Hall, who sends a high ball down the wing. It bounces on the wing. Simpkin tried to paddle it forward. Curtis tried the fend off. Ball spills loose. Viney picks it up. He's stripped to the footy. Now Scott has a go. The umpires called for a hold, in fact, to Viney. So he's got the free kick at left half back for the D's.
Jack Viney. His side 72 points in front. Saturday night footy at the G. It's been a pretty dark night for North Melbourne so far. He kicks down the wing and Aaron Hall takes the intercept mark for the Kangas. And a slow play again. He chips it short to Simpkin. Dishes it back to Hall, who keeps on running. He can send North Melbourne inside 50. Ugly looking kick. Grundy knocks it away. Viney wins the contested ball. Hand pass to Bowie. Clever just paddles it to Hibbard's advantage. Hand pass to Lever. Goes back by Handu. Rivers trying to kick out of defence. Kicks it straight into Goldstein. And he smothers it out of play. And we've got a stoppage inside North's forward 50. A boundary throw in 40 out from their goal. Yes, and there's 0437 774 774. Rory in Reservoir. Hi guys, blind listener, love your commentary. This game reminds me of round 1 2016 when Dane Swan wrecked his leg 10 minutes in and the Pies got trounced. Yuck. Obviously speaking about the combat injury earlier, and it hasn't improved from North Melbourne thereafter, down by 72 points, 12 gone in the third.
So from the ball in, there's a free kick off the ball against Zerha for a Shepherd. Was the umpire's call going to Bowie in the left back pocket for Melbourne. He winds up and kicks as far as he can down the outer side wing to a 2-on-2. Offhand, Simpkin at ground level couldn't take it cleanly. Ball ricocheting amongst a fair few players. Low Core picks it up. He's tackled by Shaki. We've got a stoppage on the outer wing.
They're doing a better job just keeping their forward half, but they don't look as vulnerable when Melbourne actually win the ball. They're forcing them into slow play and then forcing that long down the line kick, which is easy to defend.
Powell from the stoppage. Chips it forward. Stevenson in front position. The fist came from McVie. North Melbourne still win it through Core, who hand passes to Larky. Kicks it to full forward. Whistle on play. Free kick North Melbourne. 20 metres out directly in front. Cam Zerha can line up for his second.
I have to have a look at it's going to be against Michael Hibbard, potentially just for a hold. And again, if you can wheel and go and get the ball in deep quick, defenders are going to panic. Yeah, not much in it was there, but puts that fourth umpire right on the spot.
Cam Zerha makes no mistake. He's got two, and North Melbourne have two in a row for the first time tonight. We'll bring the margin back to 66. Melbourne 15-3-93. Roos 4-3-27. 14 played third term. Grayson AFL, Luke Ball and Brendan Goddard.
Yeah, as I said, though, but it's a good little patch for North Melbourne, just keeping the ball in their forward half, defensively a lot better. Melbourne's still looking to take the ball off the line, back to the corridor, but North Melbourne was set up really well for it and set up better than they were in those first couple of quarters. So, again, force them down the line where they've set up. They've got support behind the ball. And in slow play, you buy your defenders and you buy your team time to actually get in strong positions defensively. So, and then when the ball does turn over, they took a risk through the corridor and then managed to get it into a 2v2, which put Michael Hibbert under pressure on Zerha. We know how good he is one-on-one, so but I think it's just come off the back end of a good little 3 or 4 minute patch for North Melbourne.
D's by 11 goals here. Carlton by 53 goals in Perth. Both games halfway through the third quarter. From the restart, Goldstein wins the hit out, but down to Petrarca again at Melbourne. Hand pass away to Viney. Hand pass back at the ankles of Petrarca. Trying to slip to Cunnington. Tackle is caught. Great work, Cunnington. Advantage applied. Goldstein chips a kick to centre half forward. Slipping over Larky. Melbourne win it back on the half back line. Brayshaw, hand pass to Oliver. Hand pass away to Lever, and he kicks out wide to Sparrow, who leaps up and marks Defensive side of the wing, members side.
But they missed another opportunity. Goldstein's got the ball in the middle of the ground, literally in the centre circle, and he chooses to try and slot a short kind of lead 25 metres to centre half forward when he's got the opportunity to get into a 2v2 back into Zerha.
Sparrow, long kick beyond the wing, gone the target. Mackay spoils, down into the path to Simpkin. Kicks to half forward for North, and Stephen May sliding takes the sprawling mark outstretched half back for Melbourne.
And he dishes it off to Hibberd from the wing, kicks up towards half forward. Fritsch will make a contest, almost came down with a mark. The umpire didn't pay it. Goldstein is dispossessed. It spills to McDonald. And try to hand pass back to Goldstein. Eventually, boundary line beats all. We've got to throw in at right half forward.
Griffin Logue's gone forward.
Saw that. Just about to mention that.
Yeah, which we saw at Fremantle time to time, didn't he? He played as a bit of a swingman.
I think when he left Fremantle, he was playing predominantly as a forward, wasn't he?
Sort of got squeezed out with
Correct me if
Ryan
I'm
and
wrong.
Cox and Alex Pearce, the other bigs they have down back.
Melbourne by 66. Ball back in a play. Spills to Chandler of the D's. His hand pass too hot for Petrarco. Then soccers it off the deck into the pocket, but it's been intercepted by Ben Mackay for North Melbourne, who can kick across the face of goal to Scott, who marks in front of Hunter.
Ben Mackay going to leave?
Ooh. Off contract?
Free agent, isn't he?
Pretty highly sought after, I think.
He needs to put the rumours to bed. There's two of them, so
The longer it goes on, Jess, as we know.
play him in the same side.
D's come out of the defensive arc. Long kick from McDonald to Taylor, who marks at half back.
Needs to play some good, consistent footy as well.
Pokes a pass back on the 45 to Cunnington, who takes the mark. He looks further down the wing, finds Simpkin, marks, plays on immediately. So long kick inside the forward 50. Larkey to target in from the side is Rivers. Really good intercept mark, leaping up over Larkey, takes it for Melbourne. Hand pass away to May. Chance for the Demons to reload. Long kick out to Fritsch. Marks defensive side of the wing, southern side. Chandler races off. Gets into a bit of space, takes the mark, looks for the captain. Gawn's got it on his chest. 52 metres out. Wide at left half forward. Forward 50 starting to fill up. Gawn runs around to his right, and in the end just lays it up to the top of the goal square. Grundy in the pack. Clean bowls a couple, spills down to Shanky. He's drilled in the tackle from McDonald, and a ball up 15 out for the Melbourne goal at the city end. Demons lead the game by 11 goals.
Invaluable lesson too for Sheasel tonight. He's playing on Chandler, who is one of those forwards, and Bourne, is the other guy he's playing on, that get up high off the ground, so he's going to test him back the other way. So getting a good lesson. Obviously going really well as a first year, but getting a good lesson on just playing on those high half forwards, when to sag, when to come up, when you need to defend.
Another stoppage deep in attack for Melbourne. Cunnington tracking the footy. Sparrow over the top of him. Didn't give away the free kick, and we've got a third stoppage inside forward 50 for the D's.
It's a good point, Beach, because drafted as a mid goal kicking forward, so I think in time he's going to play that role. So you're right, he's going to get a nice tutorial about how to do it well tonight.
Goldstein palms it down to Oliver, who sharks it, kicks into the corridor. Coming out is Howe, who gives it to Powell, and his hand pass stolen by Petrarca. Kicks towards goal away to the left for a minor. Lead is 67. Melbourne 15-4, 94. North Melbourne 4-3, 27.
Two Sherrans on the field. Zeeble goes on a stroll from the kick out and puts it out too wide. It's touched on the way through by Howe, and over the boundary line we'll have a throw in inside the forward 50 for Melbourne. Fran off the SMS. One for you, Beach. Nice to hear Brendan. I always feel like I'm in class in a good way. I feel like I learn a lot listening to it.
That's why I'm here.
67 points, Melbourne's lead. Boundary throw-in. Grundy wins it down to Viney. He's tackled. Ball held in. The ump calls for it again. 30 out for the Melbourne goal.
I just have to be careful of using footy lingo, because being back in a footy club now probably doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but I'm conscious of that, so apologise if it doesn't make sense sometimes.
Goldstein down to Cunnington. Hand pass away to Simpkin so they can run it out of defence. He goes long with the kick to Zerha. Leapt early, and May takes the intercept mark for Melbourne. Just defensive side of the wing.
Just stood his ground wonderfully. He kicks to Gawn, has a couple of bites of the cherry, and then ends up reeling in the mark. Kicks it wide to Rivers, who's marked just inside the field of play. Out of side. Melbourne by 67. He'll load up and pump it inside the arc. From position, Fritsch Core with the fist, down to Cunnington. Spins out of trouble. Goldstein taps it down to Powell, who gives it back to Goldstein, who couldn't go back to Powell by hand. And ball close to the boundary line. It's still alive. It spills to Fritsch from left half forward. Sweeping hand pass to Chandler, who has a fumble and then in a big collision with Tucker. Still diving after it. Now it spills out the back to Sparrow. He has a fumble. Cunnington has a go for North. He's spun in a 360. Ball spills loose. Stevenson picks it up. Hand passes defensive leader Scott. And now off to Sheasel with poise. Couldn't hit the target though. Gorm picks it up. And now through Rivers. The D's hit a target. It's Fritsch at centre half forward. Has players streaming inside the arc. One of them is Jordan. Coming through is Zeeble.
Spoils it away for North. Down to Taylor. Hurried kick down the wing. Griffin Logue's got it out the back. He runs onto the footy. 2 bounces. Now lifts a hand pass over the oncoming lever to Zerha, who can close to 40 out and miss. It's about their best transition play of the day.
Yeah, it was. Yep.
Absolutely.
Set up by ex-skipper Jack Zeebel's desperation. It looked like another uncontested mark for the Demons inside 50, but great effort to dive and affect that spoil. And Griffin Logue played that well too, actually. Drew the player. Cam Zerha just wasn't able to finish.
D's by 11 goals, 21 gone third term.
Bowie from the kick in into the pocket to Sparrow, who kicks long down the outer side. Gawn takes the contested grab over Goldstein. And passes to Viney, defensive side of the wing, kicks it down the line. Grundy in a one-on-one against Mackay. Off hands, Grundy wins out. Hand passes to Chandler from left half forward. Bullets a pass to Van Rooyen in the pocket. Takes the diving grab. 40 out from goal, close to the boundary line. He is going to line up for his first goal of the night, potentially.
It's 10 goals the margin in Perth, by the way, and 11 goals here, which we wouldn't have thought that would have been the case earlier. So Carlton by 59 over West Coast.
I think Charlie has got 6, but I'm going to say, or go as far as saying that Chandler is a great kick. What I've seen tonight, I haven't seen too much of him. I've seen him in front of goals. Saw him briefly in the pre-season when the Saints played them in our first pre-season game, but he does not make too many mistakes with ball in hand.
Yeah, 80%.
Van Rooyen, a cult hero already. And the ruse from the crowd tell the story. He's on the board tonight. Jacob Van Rooyen brings up his 10th goal of the season, and Melbourne's lead back out to 72, 16-4, 100. They bring up the century. The Roos 4-4-28, 23 play, third term Grandstand AFL.
Well, we spoke about North Melbourne's best transition passage of play. Unfortunately, the miss from Zerha opened the door for an opportunity for another coast-to-coast transition for the Demons. So they took it from the kick-out down to the other end, and nice work rate from young Van Rooyen. We know he's got the big tank. That's what they love about him.
I've got one for you, Bally. If I said to you, you've got Van Rooyen, you got McDonald, you got Brown, and you got Shackey, you can only have 2 of them, who are you taking?
It feels like that's a discussion for after the game.
Keep that
he wants more time.
I like it. Yeah, well, it is the question. It's probably the only remaining question on this Melbourne team and their premiership assault for mine.
For the restart back in the middle, Cunnington hand pass away to Logue, who's had a go in the middle now as his kick smothered. Ricochets out to centre half forward for North, and Stevenson picks it up, tackled straight away, and a ball up.
He's actually, it doesn't look necessarily fluent, but he's not a bad kick for goal either, Jacob Van Rooyen, isn't he? Saw that last week under pressure in that last quarter. They tend to go straight.
10 goals, 2 this year.
Can take a grab as well as Oliver from the stoppage kicks in the middle of the ground, comes down to Cunnington, tackled, dispossessed. Oliver now on the bottom of the pack, trying to hand it out. Straight to Sparrow, he's tackled by Cunnington, and a ball up again in the middle of the ground. Carlton by 59, approaching three-quarter time in Perth. As Beach mentioned, 6 for Charlie Curnow. He's got it again just before the siren. And back here at the G, Tom Powell on his hands and knees, got it out to Cunnington, hand pass to Hall, his kick smothered. Ricochets out to Scott, high up and under to centre half forward. Petrarca trying to take the one-hander, couldn't complete it. McVie, hurried kick forwards, a turnover. Hall's got it, can bang it back inside 50 for the Kangas. May got away from Goldstein and takes the intercept mark again. Halfback for Melbourne. D's by 12 goals, 25 travelled third term. Curnow kicked it, by the way, so he's got 7 before three-quarter time in Perth. Nice
centering kick from May to Oliver at centre half back. Gives it to Petrarca, who flares the kick out wide to a one-on-one. Zeeble against Van Rooyen. No, it's Jordan, in fact. Ball comes back to him. Zeeble tackles him to the ground, holding the ball. So great work from Zeeble, who's given a couple to Jordan while he's laying on the ground. And take the free kick for the Roos between wing and half back.
One of many that have certainly had a better quarter. Jack Siebel, Aaron Hall, Jai Simpkins had a good quarter, 8 possessions.
I think North have had a better quarter. They haven't allowed Melbourne, when they have the ball, to get that free-flowing offence going, slowed them down, forced them backwards, sideways at times, and then last resort they've forced them down the line, which are easy to defend, as I've mentioned a couple of times.
North work it to the outer side, and now Zerha ends up with it at half forward and delivers a pass to Goldstein, who's taken a contested grab in the pocket. Hugged up against the boundary line, about 35 out.
Yeah, and they've done that better too. They've actually just forced, they've maintained possession a bit better, and they've just forced Melbourne to defend a bit. They've pulled their team defence out of position a little bit more and been able to find a few marks inside 50. Again, tough angles and tough shots.
Game number 300 last week for Todd Goldstein, and he's kicked that one a little too skinny for a minor score. Melbourne 16-4-100, North 4-5-29, 26 play, third term grandstand AFL. Let's get downstairs to Karen Peterson.
Thanks, Jess. Still no sign of Callum Coleman-Jones, who is off the ground having a concussion test after collecting an elbow from Stephen May early in the third quarter. So North Melbourne still got 3 on the bench.
Thanks, Kez. May goes short to Oliver on the kick out. 16 in the first quarter. He's up to 29 for the night. Still approaching three-quarter time here at the G. Melbourne by 71. Oliver back to May. Now the long left-footed drop punt up to the wing, and Ben Mackay comes off his man to take the intercept mark for North. So they trap it in their front half, and they've been able to play a bit of the game over the last 10 minutes or so. And that hasn't happened too much tonight. In fact, they're 18th in the competition for time in forward half in the young season. Switches on. Tucker's got it in front of the interchange. Short kick to Turner.
Well, you can see why, because they have been reluctant to take grass, haven't they? A lot of times tonight. Instead of going forward and taking that grass, as I said, they've chipped sideways and backwards.
Short to Curtis. Curtis high half forward, puts it inside 50. Load just brings it down to Turner. He's handpass straight to Petrarca. High bomb out of the defensive 50. Shackey wrestles with Zeeble. Ball comes down in front of him. Viney knocks it on to the advantage of Fritz. Whistle on the play. There's a free kick from Razor Ray, who's the out-of-zone umpire. Says actually that's going to Zeeble for the wrestle with Shackey.
It was after the marking contest, right?
Well, I hope so. It looked like a pretty even one-on-one. They both had a fair bit of each other, but North are getting the free kick, so it stays in their front half. Sheasel to Hall, and now out to Howe. Short kicking game. Howe can put the Roos inside. 50 to Taylor, who takes the mark just in front of the arriving McVee. He pokes the pass out wide, and Stevenson's got it. Pressed up against the fence, right half forward, 45-50 out. A couple of moments tonight, Ray.
Had a replay now.
Had a 100-metre penalty, and now had a zone call.
It wasn't in the contest. It must have been after. Because if anything, Zeeble might have held Shackey.
71-point margin. Jaden Stevenson trying to cut into that, and he kicks it right to the goal line. Like he competes, it's knocked through for a rush behind. So it'll be 70 points at the 29-minute mark of the third term. 100 plays 30. 16-4 to 4-6. Three-quarter time in Perth. It's 71 points there, Jess, Carlton's way.
Some big results on Saturday night footy. May with the kick in. Sends it long to the outer side. Gawn spoils. Down to Oliver. Jams it on the boot. Not 15. Play on's the call. Core gives it to Mackay. Flares the kick out wide to Sheasel, who's marked at right half forward. Wheels in board and then kicks it to a contest. Logue against Bowie. Bowie, who played in front, takes the mark. Bit of a size mismatch, but Bowie wins out. Right on the three-quarter time siren here at the MCG. Melbourne well on their way to a big victory against North Melbourne. They lead by 70 points as we return for home. 16-4-100 to the Roos, 4-6-30. Goal kickers for Melbourne. Fritsch has 4, 3 to Pickett, 2 each to Petrarca and Chandler, and singles to Van Rooyen, Grundy, Rivers, Neil Bullen and Sparrow. And for North Melbourne, 2 each to Nick Larkey and Cam Zerha.
Thanks, Jess. 70 points here, Melbourne over North, and as mentioned, 71 points in Perth. Carlton leading the West Coast Eagles. So 14-12 to 3-7 is the scoreline in Perth. Is that right? Yep, 14-12 to 3-7. And Charlie Curnow has kicked 7 goals there for Carlton in that game. The thoughts of Brendan Goddard and Luke Ball coming up. This is Grandstand AFL. You can find us on ABC Radio, Sport Digital, and now streaming in 2023 for the first time on the ABC Listen app.
ABC Listen. Rampaging Royce Laven and HG Nelson.
I note that some people don't use logbooks anymore.
What?
Yeah.
They don't know cos, sine,
cosine, cosine, cotan. They're all great.
Lodging on the blind side.
Why don't they do it?
I don't know.
Royal Commission. What happened to the logbook? I loved it. I used to open it up. Could we get Volandis to drag the logbook
kicking and screaming back into our universities?
Podcast available now on the ABC Listen app. Grandstand AFL.
Now streaming every match on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
Chance deep in attack again as Goldstein palms it down straight to Petrarca, who kicks the easiest goal. Van Rooyen's in space. His 2 kicks from goal, left half forward. Wheels around, pumps it long to the pocket, and Fritsch couldn't complete the mark. Follows up at ground level, kicks around the corner for number 4.
Roos leading goal kicker, Larkey.
Well done.
Superb finish. Threads it from out wide. He's got a couple.
North Melbourne still win it through Core, who hand passes to Larkey, kicks it to full forward, whistle on play, free kick North Melbourne. 20 metres out directly in front, Cam Zurhaar can line up for his second. Cam Zurhaar makes no mistake, he's got 2 and North Melbourne have 2 in a row for the first time tonight. Van Rooyen, a cult hero already. And the roos from the crowd tell the story. He's on the board tonight, Jacob Van Rooyen.
The 2023 AFL season.
On radio,
ABC Sport Digital.
and now streaming on the ABC Listen app.
Sounds there from the third quarter, a more competitive one from the Roos. They conceded 8 goals to 1 in the first quarter. In the second quarter, it was 5 goals to 1, and in that term, they kicked 2. And in the end, Melbourne edged the quarter by just 4. Corbin Middlemash, Jess Webster, Karen Peterson on the boundary, and our Grandstand AFL experts, former teammates Luke Ball and Brendan Goddard.
It was a better quarter, Corb. You're right, and it started around the ball. They had more of the footy, and they were just able to maintain possession a little bit more. We spoke off air then, in that first half. I couldn't recall an instance where they actually had a decent chain of possession, North Melbourne, and that was clearly down to Melbourne's pressure on the ball, but then that much vaunted team defence that we talk about. I really couldn't recall an instance where North Melbourne had a decent chain of possession, certainly not from the back half, to their forward half, and didn't have a mark inside 50 in that first quarter, whereas that quarter they were a bit more, they were patient, they spread the ground a bit, and they started to use the ball a bit better and plug a few or pick a few holes apart in this Melbourne team defence. So look, perhaps Melbourne weren't quite as on top of their game from that point of view and let their guard down a little bit. But yeah, a couple of times we saw North be able to put together decent passages of play and chain the ball from one end of the ground to the other, and resulted in a couple of goals. One from a nice mark and goal from Nick Larkey, and another one from a relatively soft free kick, but all a result of that movement and being able to get the ball in deep to one-on-ones. And let's hope that they can do that again in this last quarter, and maybe even take a few more risks through the middle of the ground as this game opens up a little bit. Melbourne's point of view, look, the damage is done, we know that, and the challenge in these sort of games is not to get into bad habits and to have players continue to work hard and continue to earn their spot and play their role. So a lot more even quarter, which is a credit to North in that quarter. The challenge is, can they go again? Because it was half time. It was certainly looking like a 100-pointer, wasn't it? A decent sized blowout. So yeah, they have to take a bit of credit that quarter for their effort. I thought it was led, by their leaders, by Simpkin, who had 8 possessions, by Zeeble, who had 8 himself. Young Sheasel had 9, which is great. And Aaron Hall, who I thought, pretty ordinary first half, to be honest, kept working away and had 10 possessions himself. So much better quarter. Can they reset and go again? Can Alistair set them the task of halving, if not winning the quarter in this last quarter? We'll wait and see.
Well, it's just about little wins, isn't it? So they had a small win that quarter, made it more difficult for Melbourne. 2 scores, 3-1 to 2-3. So Melbourne just getting the edge, but 5 scoring shots to 4. They had a +2 in inside forward 50s. but the ones that Melbourne did get, it wasn't that free-flowing from one end to the other, which is pretty rare these days in football. It's teams are set up so well behind the ball, and the pressure around the source is really high. So, yeah, small wins, and they had opportunities. You made mention going inside 50. They got a bit bomby there early. Simpkin, Goldstein we highlighted during the quarter. Fix up those couple of little things, and they've got more opportunities, and their forwards are looking more dangerous.
Interesting to note, Carlton have not had a 10-goal win since 2014 against any opponent in the league.
The multi-pass.
It's amazing.
Stat.
Since 2014. The margin at the moment, by the way, is 77 points as they've just kicked the first goal of the last quarter against West
10
Coast.
years, pretty much.
Amazing. So Carlton lead at 15-12 to 3-7 over West Coast. The SMS, Georgie at the G. Given North Melbourne haven't played much at the MCG in recent seasons, could some of their players be overwhelmed? Good start by the D's. A happy Demon supporter listening at the G.
They should be happy to be out there, shouldn't they? Yeah.
Correct. Not when there's only 30,000 here.
Melbourne by 70 points. Final term underway. Goldstein wins the hit out. Comes down to Sparrow, though. Squeezes the kick out, smothered by Shields. Shields for the ruse, knocks it forward, but straight into the path of Langdon. Runs, carries, draws a defender. Hand pass to Viney. Kicks to centre half forward. Gawn hitting up. Pat collapses in front of him. Falls down to McDonald to the ruse. Hand pass to Hall. His kick smothered. In the process, it ricochets off. I think the body hit the midriff of Petrarca and flew all the way through for a behind. So I think that goes in the book for Petrarca. 71 points is Melbourne's lead 30 seconds into the final term.
McDonald at left half back sends it long down the outer side. Goldstein has 2 to beat. Spills to ground. Shields wins the footy. Hand passes to Powell. His hand pass over the head of Logue. Stevenson's out the back, but Rivers beat him in the one-on-one. Now gives it to Viney. Hand passes to Langdon and off to McVie from right half back. Kicks down the line over the head of Grundy. Now the foot race is on. Fritsch keeps it alive. Goldstein taps it forward. Tucker couldn't keep it alive. Throw in on the outer side in front of the Shane Warne stand. Melbourne by 71 early stages, final term. They kicked 8 goals in the opening term, 5 in the second term, and 3 in the third. So what can they produce here in the final term?
And it comes. Grundy and Goldstein to go at it. Both rucks miss it. Spills through to Langdon. Kicks a high up and under to centre half forward. Chandler flies. Hall spoils. Down to Zeeble. Gee, ducked his head and Shaki took him front on, but he gets the free for a high tackle.
Dangerous practice, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Melbourne members aren't sure about it. Free kick for Zeeble. He goes across the half-back line to Core. Kicks to a one-on-one. Curtis judged it well. Bowie flew over the top. Curtis marks and plays on. Lifts a hand pass away to Simpkin. Does a full 360. And pokes the pass out to half-forward. Spoiled away from Power. Brayshaw does well. Down to Jordan of the Demons. Hand pass to Neil Bullen. Goes back by hand to Viney. And he kicks all the way to half-back for Langdon. The Seagulls have appeared. 1-2 hand pass with Rivers. Langdon runs down his southern wing where he spends so much time here at the G. Finds Fritsch. And the long ball out to Shaki at right half forward. Marks for Melbourne.
Wheels around and then shoots a pass to Petrarca, who's marked just inside the arc. Keen to move it forward and hits Gawn on the lead. Wonderful footy from the D's. Gawn can line up from 40 out, 45-degree angle to the right.
Well, we talked
Maybe
about
30 out.
Sorry, Jess. We talked about three-quarter time about how much better North Melbourne were with just defending the ground and making it harder, and they've just gone from one end to the other without laying a glove on it. But there's just a late decision there from Jack Zeeble to press that long kick from Frisks to Shaki, it was, with Ben Mackay playing up in front. So just a couple of lapses of concentration.
Max Gawn to become the D's 10th individual goal kicker. He can't. He misses to the left for a minor. Lead is now 72. Melbourne 16-6, 102. North 4-6, 30.
Quietly putting together a pretty good game. Christian Petrarca, the 30 possessions, 8 inside 50s and 2 goals.
Zeeble short to the back pocket for Core. Short kick to McDonald. So North with it in their defensive 50. Melbourne by 72 points, and the switch all the way over to the opposite back flank for Hall. And he can just kick out of the defensive arc up to Tucker. Career high, by the way, for Charlie Curnow. He's just kicked his 8th. He's taken a one-on-one hanger on Shannon Hearn, sat on the head of the Eagles veteran, and then went back to pop it through. So he's kicked 8 goals, 3. And Carlton lead the game by 84 points over the West Coast Eagles as North work it into the middle of the ground. Comes through to Cunnington. Gets a sharp hand pass away to Simpkin, puts on the Jets, powers away from Grundy, from 40 out, miss-kicks it. And Rivers takes the intercept mark on the behind line for Melbourne. A bit of a story of the night for the Roos. 72 points Melbourne's lead, 4 gone, final term here at the G.
Kicks to Langdon at right half back, gets around Tucker on the mark, and kicks down the line. Sheasel, that's a good grab with Gawn bearing down. He kicks it laterally to Zeeble, who's marked just inside the centre square. Shoots it forward to Simpkin, who's got it. Still inside the centre square. Measures the pass to Larkey on the lead. It's knocked away from him. Cunnington's there at ground level. From centre half forward, pokes the pass looking for Scott, but getting a hand in there was Jordan. It spills to Bowie, who hand passes back to Jordan. He loops the hand pass over the top to Shaki. He gives it back to Jordan, who's kept running. He's on the wing member's side. He kicks further afield to Chandler, who's broken at left half forward. Mackay slips over on the mark. Chandler kicks laterally to Cozzy Pickett, who kicked 3 goals in the first half. He's got it at half forward and kicks into the forward 50 where Petrarca's got some space. Marks 30 out from goal, slide angle to the left.
Again, from the back half, I hate harping on it, sound like a broken record, but when it in the back half back flank, and again, don't lay a finger on it. It's that kick, though, that opens up the play from Chandler here. Took it wide on the boundary. Ben Mackay got across, held him up, and then it was just North Melbourne's forwards and their midfielders are so slow to get back and clog that corridor. They got the inside kick back into the corridor, which opens up the whole field, and that's where Petrarca's able to find space because in line with the ball, North will set up well.
Good night for the D's and Petrarca for disposal number 30 and goal number 3. Just sneaks it home. And we're back out to an equal game high, 78 points. Melbourne 17-6-108 to North 4-6-30. 6 played final term on Grandstand AFL. Before we hear the thoughts of Luke Ball and Brendan Goddard, let's get downstairs to Karen Peterson.
Thanks, Jess. Melbourne have flicked the switch and they've activated their substitute. James Harms comes into the game. Michael Hibbard, the unlucky D, he gets to sit at the back of the bench and watch the clinical display from that vantage point.
It's a good night, isn't it, from Petrarca? It was probably Oliver that got them going early in that first quarter, wasn't it? But Petrarca across the 4 quarters has been really consistent, as explosive as he usually is, and has pushed forward tonight. He's been the one to get on the end of a few, so good night out.
The shield's gone to Oliver, so he's done a really good job since I think it was the end of the first quarter. But
it's fun. It hasn't been a hard. I've been watching it. It really hasn't been a hard tag. He's just sort of drifted out of the game.
Bit of accountability back in the game.
Back in the middle, Grundy wins the head out. Tom Powell there, though, for North Melbourne. Hand pass to Sheasel. He gives it to Tucker, who's tackled and taken down on the wing. And Langdon, the defensive effort. Sleeves rolled up in characteristic fashion as Goldstein wins the head out here. Comes down to Simpkin, shoots a handball wide to Tucker, and the ump says there was not enough force on that fist for the handball, so he's pinged him for a throw. Pickett plays on, then kicks it straight into Simpkin, who smothers it, falls down to Tucker. He's tackled again, and we'll do it all again with another stoppage out on that southern wing underneath the Shane Warne stand between wing and half forward for Melbourne. D's lead it by 12 goals, 7 played final term.
Grundy wins the tap straight down to Simpkin of North Melbourne. His hand pass looking for Tucker, has a fumble. Hall picks it up, hand passes to Powell. He's set upon by Pickett. Ball spills loose. Oliver hand passes inboard to Sparrow, who hand passes to Chandler. Backwards to Brayshaw and gain 150 from centre half forward. Unloads towards goal. It's missed to the left. New game high, 79-point lead to the D's, 17-7-109. North Melbourne 4-6-30. 8 played final term on Grandstand AFL.
Aaron Hall with the kick-out duties. Melbourne well set up. Hall just takes a bit of ground and then bangs it long up to the wing. Larkey and May in a contest. They wrestle, the ball hits the deck. Brayshaw's there for Melbourne. Hand pass away to Chandler. Tackled, spun around by Stevenson. Got a hand pass away. Brayshaw, deft touch to Gawn. Hand pass to Oliver. Kicks inside 50. Getting back Mackay. Knocks it away from Shaki. And a boundary throw in forward pocket for the D's.
Oliver just apologising to Brayshaw. Brayshaw was just ahead of him. He could have handballed it. Only 5 metres ahead of him, and Brayshaw runs into an open goal from about 40 metres out. So little things make a big difference, but Brayshaw just trying to hit the scoreboard His milestone game.
Tom Powell with a bit of concern for his left ankle. He's been helped off the ground. A stoppage goal coming up for the Demons. Viney collects it off the deck, hooks it over his body and through for a goal. He's rocking the baby in the celebration. And the party started long ago for these Demons. 18-7, 115, North Melbourne, 4-6-30. Melbourne stretch it out to an 85-point margin at the 9-minute mark of the final term. Karen Peterson on the boundary.
Thanks, Corby. Things are going from bad to worse down here for North Melbourne. So Callum Coleman-Jones has been ruled out of the game with concussion. The unfortunate thing about that as well is that he'll also miss next week again against BJ St Kilda. They play at Marvel Stadium on Sunday, so he won't get up for that one. And as you mentioned, I don't actually see who that player was who just came off then. Powell it was. He's come off with that ankle injury. Quite a bit of concern for him down here, unable to weight bear as well.
Yeah, he looked pretty sore too. So, bad night. Potentially getting worse for the Roos here.
From the restart, Grundy rises high, wins the tap straight down to Shields of North Melbourne. He wheels around and kicks it inside 50 over the head of Larkey. D's have support at the back. McVee to Brayshaw and Bowie, all by hand. The kick out wide. It's a good one to Oliver, who has a fumble. And it does go over the line for a throw-in at left half forward for North Melbourne.
Angus Brayshaw had a terrific night as well. 25 possessions at 90%. 10 intercept possessions. Led the way in that Melbourne back six.
Melbourne by 85 from the throw-in. Logue palms it down to Cunnington. He hand passes to Shields, who breaks a tackle, crosses 50, and then measures the pass beautifully to Larkey. Just the required distance. He's marked 35 out from goal, 10 metres in from the boundary.
We got blowouts in both games, so 85 points the margin here. It's 84 points. Carlton's lead in Perth.
Oh, Charlie.
Charlie has 9.
On Charlie, watch here, Corb.
9 goals, 3. So we haven't had a player kick 9 goals in the comp since Good Friday 2021 when Josh Bruce kicked 10 against North Melbourne. So he's having a night over in Perth.
He's playing on young Rhett, is it?
Rhett Bazzo. Yeah.
Nick Larkey, tight angle from the pocket. He's missed to the left for a minor. Melbourne 18-7, 115. North Melbourne 4-7, 31.
Said what a lesson for that young fella playing on one of the best forwards in the competition. Unfortunately, it's not going his way at the minute.
84 points in both games on other sides of the country at the moment. As Bowie on the kick-out drives it up to the wing for Grundy. Takes the mark, hand pass away to Hunter, hand pass to Sparrow. Puts it along the line in front of the bench to Neil Bullen. Slips over, still fends off Hall. Gets a hand pass away to Hunter. Hands it away to Sparrow. Kicks down to half forward. Shackey trying to kick it in his direction. He competes, no mark. Spills down to Chandler. Turns onto his preferred left boot. Heads out to half forward. Fritsch the target. Core spoils. It's out of play. And a throw in 45 out from the Melbourne goal. Martin in Echuca. He's picking up what we're putting down. High team. Games like this are not easy to call. Well done.
Thank you.
And from Raleigh in Adelaide, Todd Goldstein is a gigantically underrated player.
I don't think he's underrated. He's been a star for a very long time.
Leading the competition in hit-outs to advantage, I think, at the moment.
Game 301 tonight for Goldstein. From the boundary throw-in, Melbourne eventually get it through the hands of Hunter, then Neil Bullen, then Sparrow. Back to Neil Bullen. Kicks inboard, looking for Harms, the sub, with the fresh legs. No mark. Shackey knocks it away to centre-half back, but straight to Hall, who can kick the Goldstein up on the wing.
Off hands, Jordan collects the footy at ground level off to Brayshaw. And goes back to Lever, gives it to Sparrow, who then chips it short to Oliver, who's marked 60 out from goal. He'll wheel around and pump it long to a contest at the top of this square. Where are the Flyers? The fist came from Logue. And now Shields can win the footy at ground level for the Roos. Gives it to Larkey, who's a long way from home. His hand pass misses Hall. Langdon picks it up for the D's. He's at right half forward. Turns around and kicks into the pocket. Grundy from the side. It spills to Shackey in his club debut. Snaps around the corner. But saving the day on the last line of defence. He's done it many times, Jack Zeeble.
He goes short to his new skipper. And Luke McDonald in front of the behind post. A long kick up to Larkey. Wraps his mitts around it, but he's a long way from goal at half back for North. Melbourne by 84 points here at the G. Carlton by 85 points in Perth. Larkey's got a switch. A long kick out to the right back pocket for Howe. Marks plays on, has a bounce, runs out of the defensive 50. Short kick to Simpkin. And Simpkin looks into the centre square. Finds Shields. Hand pass to Stevenson. Interesting to note he's in the long sleeve. So Clarko said it was a myth that they weren't allowed to wear long sleeves at Hawthorn, and now one of his players has got the big white long sleeves on for North. Here's Taylor. Hand pass away to Tucker. Feeds a hand pass inside the forward 50 to Logue. He's tackled straight away. Melbourne ready to pounce on anything that heads inside their defensive 50. Langdon, a 1-2 with Rivers. Langdon then chips it to Shackey. Gets there on the half volley. Tackled by McDonald. Ball held in. And a ball up between wing and half forward for North. Coming home to the city end. It's Melbourne by 84 points. 14 played in the last.
Dimmer Hardwick didn't or doesn't. Definitely didn't allow Richmond players to wear them. I've got a story, I think I've told it before, about me and Brendan Ellis standing on this wing actually after half-time in the MCG one night, and he was shivering next to me. And I said to him, mate, should be wearing a long sleeve. He goes, mate, we're not allowed to.
Pickett's gotten out the back. Sorry, Beach. He kicks to a goal square where Chandler's marked in space. Could have run on into an open goal square. Decides to go back on his line. He plays on now. Right foot snap around the corner. He's got 3. And now the lead is 90 points. They're closing in on a 100-point lead here. Melbourne 19-7, 121 North Melbourne 4-7-31. 15 played final term on Grandson AFL.
And you know the West Coast have only kicked 31 points also.
It's amazing. Oh.
And Cherry's just slotted one to go 122 to 120.
So 91.
Amazing.
Yeah, back to my story.
Sorry.
How'd you finish that one?
Yeah. Well, Cosy Pickett has space around forward. I'm sorry.
Jess, something exciting happening in the game. But then I lift up my top and I had a long sleeve like thermal thing under it as well. I got this underneath as well. And he was just like shaking his head. But I'm pretty sure that still stands. Have we seen a Richmond player
wear
a long sleeve on a dimmer?
I think you're right. They don't do it. Hawthorn weren't allowed to do it, and we got one tonight in Jaden Stevenson on an 8-degree night in Melbourne. Hurried kick forward from the Roos, intercepted by Brayshaw. Short kick to Petrarca, not 15. Amazingly identical score lines almost on either sides of the continent. So 121 to 31 here. As BJ mentioned, 122 to 31 over in Perth. Similar stages midway through the final term. 91 and 90 points the margin. Comes to centre forward for Melbourne. Here's Petrarca, short kick to Chandler, drops at the knees, tackled, says ball up.
That should be holding the ball.
Clayton's got to work again this quarter. Said how good a job Shield. It doesn't look like he's going to anymore. Doesn't even look like he's on the ground at the minute. Shield hasn't been for a long time.
Up it goes, 25 out from Melbourne's goal. Goldstein gets to it on the hop, and then he's tackled, tried to fight through it, taken to ground up, says holding the ball now. Free kick Melbourne, 25 out just left of centre.
Well, it's not Matty Nichols, I don't think. It's a lookalike. He missed one there. Chandler should have been pinged. He had prior opportunity, and then that's the sort of night, isn't it?
It's Martin Roger is the umpire, not Rogers. And this is Josh Shackey.
Shields is on the ground too, mind you.
It's part of the game. He generally does well.
At his third club, Shackey nurses it through. Melbourne is having a party, and every player on the ground rushes to Josh Shackey. The left footer in his third club pops one through for the Demons. 27 games with the Lions after being drafted, picked 2 overall, 45 with the Western Bulldogs. And now in game 1 for Melbourne. He can extend this lead to 96 points. 27-127 Melbourne, the Kangaroos 4-7-31, 18 gone, final term. D's by 96.
Quite literally everyone on Melbourne's team on the ground got over 2.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, it is really good.
And then he runs off the bench, leaving out there.
Straight onto the phone too.
Why do they run straight off after they kick a goal? They shouldn't do that. Do I sound like an older generational type expert commentator then?
Back in the middle.
Griffin Logue in the ruck here for the Kangas.
Bounces offline, so we'll do it all again.
Throw the magnets around a bit, might as well.
At one stage in the third quarter, it was 2 goals each. North had sort of pegged it back a little bit, and now Melbourne have kicked the last 5 goals of the game. It's as wide as it's been at 96.
Gone with the tap straight down to Cunnington of the Roos. Gives it to Zerha. Slams it forward towards full forward, but Lever read it best. takes the intercepting mark at the top of the defensive goal square and then flares the kick out wide to Sparrow, who's running hard. Drops the mark, has time to regather, and give it to a running Langdon down the southern side wing. Posts the kick over the top to Jordan, who's in space on the wing. And kicks it inboard to Neil Bullen, who's marked between wing and half forward. He hand passes back to Langdon, who kept running. Then loops the hand pass over the top to Petrarca, who has space at right half forward. He kicks it to a dangerous position. A big fist comes from Howe. It spills to Neil Bullen at centre half forward. Wheels around, kicks laterally to Bowie, who's marked at left half forward. Crosses the paint with 50 and says, I want to get in on the action too. Kicks just the third goal of his career. A rare moment in the spotlight for young Jake Bowie. His first goal of the season, and the margin is now beyond 100 points. Melbourne 21-7, 133 to North Melbourne 4-7-31. 20 minutes played now, final term on Grandson AFL. Luke Ball and Brendan Goddard.
Quite literally, a contested mark or intercept mark in the goal square for Melbourne from a centre square bounce. And North Melbourne just don't lay a finger on it. So I think that's the most concerning thing, is just the ease at which Melbourne have scored from their back half and their offence, as good as they've been. Like, give them credit as well. But there's just so many things that are going wrong or have to go wrong from one end to the other for a team to actually do that. You can maybe get away with making one, maybe two mistakes, but for a team to chain up and literally have 5-6 possessions, kick goal at the other end, there's a lot going wrong.
Even in their premiership year, their biggest win was 98 points, so it's beyond three figures already as the hurried kick inside the forward 50 again from the D's. Fritsch competes, spills down to Neil Bullen, sweeps a hand pass to Petrarca. Hand pass goes back to Sparrow, who can kick off a step to the top of the goal square. Grundy takes the mark. The chorus for Van Rooyen had started, and Grundy stands in front of all of them to take the mark just outside the goal square.
Well, everyone getting in on the act, aren't they? Brodie Grundy, who I thought his first half was pretty good. He's drifted out of the game a little bit. Only 14 possessions, and I've just been able to share the load a bit, obviously, with Max Gawn. It's still finding its way a bit, that combination, but this is what they really want him doing, don't they, when he's resting forward. Taking a big clunk, kicking a couple of goals.
And they raised the bat with the last goal. They're not done yet, Melbourne. Lead's still growing. Grundy pops it through. It's Melbourne by 108 points. 22-7, 139. North Melbourne 4-7-31. 22 gone final term. Score update in Perth. It's Carlton by 90. So unfortunately, they've got the close one. 5 minutes to go in the final term. Grundy with a couple, so 3 for Petrarca, 4 for Fritsch, 3 for Pickett, 3 for Chandler. So a hell of a spread in the goal kickers, and then a heap with multiples.
And Tom Power with ice on the left ankle as well on the bench. So down 3 players, Coleman, Jones and Power. So it's been a dirty old night for North Melbourne, hasn't it?
11 the mercy rule, don't they?
Yeah.
Yep.
11 goal kickers, 5 multiple goal kickers.
As the ladder stands, Melbourne on top with a big percentage boost.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, isn't it? Come out of these 2 games tonight, both teams at the pointy end of the ladder. We know that percentage will probably play a part at some stage this year.
From the middle, Gorman's the tap, sharked by Cunnington and gives it to Shields, and then hand passes to Simpkin. Sends a high ball towards half forward. Off hands, Hunter's there for the D's. Hand passes defensively to Brayshaw from left half back. Sends it down the line. Harms has slipped over, allows Hall to take the uncontested grab just forward of the interchange gates. His first game of the season last week, Aaron Hall for North, and 22 disposals against his old side. He kicks it backwards to Zeeble, who has a fumble and then kicks it all the way back to Mackay inside the defensive goal square, who this time kicks it to the outer side of the G and finds Luke McDonald at left half back. Kicks short to Howe, who's marked defensive side of the wing. Sends it down the line. Tucker was knocked away from him by Lever, and now the D's can go back the other way. Sparrow picks it up, chips it forward to Neil Bullen, who marks it right half forward. The run continues from Langdon. He gets it from 55 metres out from home. He crosses the paint, and then he's turned it over. Straight down the throat of Liam Shields, who chips forward to Hall.
Kicked it in between 3 of his
He had too many
teammates.
options, didn't he? He had too many options, and in the end
head
he said,
spinning.
I don't want to choose, so you can have it.
They've only had 1,500-point victories, Melbourne, in club history, which they were one of the...
15?
Yeah. They were one of the founding 8, of course, back in 1897, so not a heap in that category. They did win a game against Carlton by 109 points in round 9 of 2018 when they made it through to the Final Four, so it's their biggest win previously under Simon Goodwin. 108 as it stands at the moment, 24 gone final term as Howe on the wing kicks to half forward for North, and Taylor takes a sprawling mark. 70 metres out in that launch pad, he rolls, looks for Larkey, leaping up over his head. His Zerha hits up to meet it, tackled high by Max Gawn, and a free kick for Cam Zerha. And Zerha can have a look at them here from 20 metres out, just left of centre. The crowd, by the way, posted at 29,455 for the Roos. First game at the G for the new season. I'm not sure all of them are still here. Cam Zerha, one of just 2 goal kickers tonight for North Melbourne. He has 3. He pops it through. And Melbourne's lead is cut to 102. What a sentence that is. 25 minutes into the final term. 22-7 to 5-7. Zerha with 3. Larkey has the other 2 for North.
Just got to find a way to get him. We started in the centre bounce, obviously Cam Zerha, and I mean, they need 2 or 3 of him, really, don't they? He certainly stands out in terms of his intensity, his ability to win a one-on-one contest, and good on him. He stuck at it, and 3 goals in a 100-point loss is a decent effort, isn't it? But they just need to find a way to, well, he needs to find a way to get involved in the game a bit more.
No, he's just losing his flexibility now with Callum Colin-Jones going down. Camden.
Yep.
Comden, sorry. I was searching. But we saw him, I think he started in the centre square bounce and spent 5 minutes and then went forward, but he's lost that flexibility, having been able to impact the game in the midfield more and then go and actually rest forward, which we know how damaging he can be.
Grundy from the middle wins the clearance, kicks it towards half forward. The players dive on. We've got a stoppage, 50 out from Melbourne's goal. Grundy straight down to Pickett, who fends off Hall, spins around another tackler, gives it to Grundy, who kicks it straight into Hall. It ricochets off him. Simpkin has a go. Now does Goldstein. Howe picks it up, gives it to Cunnington, and then gives it off to McDonald, who's kick looking for Scott. Great work from Langdon in the contest. The ball comes back inside forward 50 for the D's. Fritsch, one way then the other, then dispossessed. Play on's the call. Hall picks it up, gives it to Cunnington, now to Darcy Tucker, who kicks out wide is a nice one, hits Logue on centre wing member's side.
Brody Kemp's kicked his first goal in AFL footy. Carlton lead by 90. Melbourne lead by 102 here.
When was the last time the Eagles lost by 100 points on their home deck, Corb?
Yeah. You like the Eagles, don't you, Corb?
I am a huge fan of everything they've been able to do. One of the most successful teams, Beach, of the last 30 years, as we know, is Sheasel kicks in the middle of the ground for Hall, and he switches play out to the opposite flank, and Turner takes the mark, lays a hand pass off to Zeeble. He's 55 out, pulls the trigger, back in board, and there's Liam Shields. And he takes the mark. And he's playing on the MCG on his 32nd birthday, where he's been able to put a few big gaudy premiership medallions around his neck in the past, but this isn't one I'm sure that he'll remember too fondly. Here's a chance to at least get it back to double digits.
25th possession, 10 of those contested. Always gives his all, Liam Shields. Never be accused of not having a crack.
He got as wide as 108 points Melbourne's way. Maroons, they've kicked the last goal to make it 2. He threads it, and it's back to 96 points. With a hot minute left in the game, 22-7 to 6-7. Liam Shields becomes just the 3rd goal kicker for North Melbourne tonight. So it's 90 points the difference over in the West. It is 96 points the difference here. And it's not lost on me.
90, it's about to be 96 though, isn't it? Waiting on a score review.
Yeah.
So it's not lost on me that this is happening on the day in which the decision's been made by the federal government to pave the way for another team in the competition, when we have 2 sides at the moment at least in the game that are almost anti-competitive.
Yeah, we can discuss that later. But
well, I think the Chris Scott model is the only way to do it, I think, is to reduce current lists. So by 10 or so, or however many it is, The problem is if you're carving off the bottom 10 on every list and hand him over to Tassie.
West Coast will be struggling to fill a team if they lose 10 players.
The ramifications on the state league competitions as well with that ruling as well. And also actually opens up with lots to talk about. Do Tasmania get a VFL team back again?
Well, they have to, right? I think that's a natural thing is to start the VFL, or they'll start under 18s and then VFL.
They have an under 18 team playing. Yep.
So stoppage at centre half forward for the Roos. Harms emerges from the stoppage, passes to Grundy, goes backwards to McVee, who kicks backwards to Brayshaw, who's marked on the defensive 50-metre line. Chips it short to Jordan. Still inside their back 50. Their lead's 96 points. They're pretty content to tick down to full time. Jordan kicks it short to Langdon. He flares it out to the outer side to Lever. Still inside defensive 50. Now they move it forward to Chandler, who presents on the lead. Great work from McDonald to bring it to ground. Zerha collects, gives it to Shields, who gives it backwards to McDonald. Hand passes to Lode. Now hand passes to Scott. Now they're under pressure. Scott gives it to Mackay, and now Sheasel hits a target inside 50. It's Cunnington. They eventually worked it out, North Melbourne. Cunnington wants to play on. He sends it towards goals. It got the carry. It does. On the full-time siren here at the G. A dominant performance from Melbourne. They win by 90 points over North Melbourne.
Have they not had the song queued up? They didn't have long enough to get the Melbourne tune ready.
Yeah.
Feels like
only since 5 minutes into the game. It's all right.
It was a nice call on the siren, Jess, ready to go. Just waiting for the band.
And waiting.
Testing.
They haven't got the Melbourne tune ready to go, despite the fact they kicked the first 6 goals of the game.
Here we go.
Here we go. Chance to sing along, Melbourne fans. The D's by 90.
It's a grand old flag, it's a high-flying flag, it's the emblem for me and for you. It's the emblem of the team we love, the team of the red and the blue. Every heart beats true for the red and the blue, and we sing this song to you. Should old acquaintance be forgotten, keep your eye on the red and the blue.
It got out to 108 points, time on in the final term, North Melbourne. It's hard to say they put a good face on it. At least they got it back to double digits. They kicked the last 3 goals of the game. Melbourne kicked the first 6 of the night. They kicked 10 of the first 11. It was really a boat race from start to finish. Melbourne by 44 at quarter time, 66 at the half, 70 at 3/4 time, as wide as 108. But in the end, it's Melbourne by 90. A huge percentage lead if they get to 5-2. And for Clarko, his team has now lost 5 in a row.
It's a high-flying flag. It's the emblem for me and for you. It's the emblem of the team we love, the team of the red and the blue. Every heart beats true for the red and the blue, and we sing this song to you. Should old acquaintance be forgotten, keep your eye on the red and the blue.
1 minute to go over in Perth, and Carlton lead West Coast by 102 points in 2 games, which have followed a similar scoreline, particularly in this final term. Melbourne by 90 points here at the MCG, full-time in front of 29,455. Charlie Curnow's kicked 9 in Perth. We'll bring you the closing stages of that shortly. A 102-point lead for Carlton over West Coast, or not the closing stages, but we'll tie a bow on what's happening over there. Our focus, though, here at the MCG, 4 for Bailey Fritsch. Pickett kicked 3, Chandler kicked 3, Petrarca 3, 2 for Grundy, then singles for Van Rooyen, for Viney, for Bowie, for Shackey, Rivers, Neil Bullen and Sparrow. Meanwhile, for North Melbourne, Zerha kicked 3, Likey kicked 2, and then singles for Cunnington and for Shields. 90 points in the finish. Melbourne over North Melbourne tonight at the MCG. The game in a nutshell, Brennan Goddard and Luke Ball. How would you sum it up?
Well, essentially a training drill for Melbourne, particularly early, but North Melbourne had a period in the third quarter there where they got the game on their terms, played in their front half. They looked hard to score against. They were slowing Melbourne down and scored off the back end of re-entry and a bit of perseverance. And then, like all good teams do, they just continue on in the same manner, and they just broke them open again in that last quarter. But I think, I don't want to speak too much detail because the Saints play North Melbourne next week. So I think it'll be vastly different North Melbourne team next week than it was tonight, just based on a bit of the defensive structure, and that they'll go away and review the game intently. And I said that I think defensively, I think was the most concerning thing. So I don't want to jinx ourselves because I said we got them next week, but I think that was the most concerning thing. And then probably just the ease in which North Melbourne allowed Melbourne to walk out the front of stoppages and early a couple of corridor exits, which puts your defence under so much pressure. It doesn't matter how good you are. You've got equal numbers ahead of the ball, and they weren't at that time. They actually had a spare behind the ball, and Sheasel or Hall at different times dropping off that high half forward of Melbourne, and it just puts them under too much pressure, and he becomes null and void because he gets bypassed. They have too much time and space with the ball. So there's a developing team obviously, but there's 6-day break, 5-day break for Melbourne, so there's really no excuses. They're in the same boat. So you can probably put that one down to youth and inexperience and how to deal with short breaks, and they've had a couple of travels in there as well, coming back Gold Coast last week, gather round Adelaide, so 3 weeks ago. So it's I think just as North Melbourne supporters, you just wish to see a bit more competitiveness, probably from go to woe, really. And as you may mention,
especially early, I think
young teams just don't have that ability to sustain that effort that's required at AFL level to not get blown out against any team, let alone arguably the best team in it.
The first quarter's the one that'll disappoint supporters, I think. That's where the review needs to come. So the lack of resistance, the lack of defensive effort, both around the contest and then out in space, when you should be fresh, you should be, we spoke about first game on the MCG for a lot of them, but first game for the year, you should be, nice night, you should be up and about and energetic and hungry for the contest. Other than that first contest, really, from Cameron Zurhaar, we just didn't see it in that first quarter, and that'll disappoint. I mean, there's clearly a massive difference massive gap in experience, massive gap in talent at the moment. I think we think there's probably a premiership favourite here against a bottom two team, so that's the reality of it. But
then you add salt to the
the injuries as well. So, but just that first, where it was 7-0 really halfway through the first quarter, game over.
And it's more about how it happened too, right?
That's what I mean. Yeah, the lack of too much uncontested footy. Okay, so you're trying to implement a new defensive system. Well, it just you couldn't put your finger on anything really in that first quarter. So that's what'll disappoint Alistair and the supporters, no doubt. From Melbourne's point of view, what I like about them, what they're building this year is, as I look down, Kyle Chandler sort of jumping into the crowd, hugging some people. They know they need to improve, obviously, off last year and even the year before to win it again. And that improvement's been driven by some new faces like Kyle Chandler, and Lockie Hunter's been a nice addition.
Grundy.
Grundy, obviously. McVee, across half-back. They've really found a player there. And Van Rooyen, who we know. Yeah, Lockie Hunter's come in, for sure. So, and Van Rooyen, and really, and when you asked me halfway through the quarter, I think Corbin, really the last piece of the puzzle for this team. It's the best defence in the comp. It's, I think, the best midfield across, including rucks and outside run in the comp as well. It's just where they finally settle on in that front six, front seven. It's going to be the difference, I think, between a top four finish and a premiership, even though as early in the year as we are.
Because the thing about Melbourne last year, as poor as they ended the season and going out in straight sets, but they were still the number one defensive team in the competition, the hardest team to score against. Their
scoring went missing.
Their scoring went missing, which they highlighted was an area in improvement in the pre-season. It was visible right from the get-go. I made mention earlier in the call that we played them in the first pre-season game was evident that their change in mentality, a bit of their ball movement had completely changed.
They get themselves to 5-2 on the season with a share of top spot. Melbourne, a big win by 90 points over the Kangaroos. Into the winners' rooms, Karen Peterson is down there as the Melbourne boys start to make their way in.
Thanks, Corby. They certainly do. Led in by Angus Brayshaw in game 150. He's been absolutely left behind by his teammates. Max Gawn having a bit of a laugh with the crowd and the rest of his teammates as Gus, well-deserved, gets a rousing applause from family and friends that are gathered down here in the rooms. Very jubilant scenes as they're just going to huddle up now. But as you can imagine, a very, very happy Melbourne camp down here. Bit of shouting and things going on. Simon Goodwin's gathered all the staff there, arm in arm. Here they go. Total domination tonight by the D's, running out eventual 90-point winners over North Melbourne. Thanks, Corby.
Thanks, Kez. We'll check in with you shortly and get some reaction from the Melbourne camp. Of course, Angus Brayshaw in game 150 leading the team in, along with Max Gawn, a couple of the leaders for the Demons, so a 90-point win over North Melbourne. What that all means in the context of the AFL table, with big wins today for Melbourne and for Carlton, so they get themselves to 5 wins. They actually leapfrog St Kilda on the top spot on the AFL table with a superior percentage on the back of that 90-point win. So the D's on top, the sides that have got to 5 wins so far through 7 games. Of course, Collingwood still to play tomorrow over in Adelaide. But we've got Melbourne, St Kilda, Brisbane and Port Adelaide, all with a share of top spot on 5 wins. Collingwood are on 5 wins through 6 games. They can go outright top, obviously, if they beat the Crows tomorrow. And Carlton all of a sudden surge up to 6th spot on the table. Their percentage jumps to 113.3 after a 108-point demolition of the West Coast Eagles. It's the club's biggest win since 2011 when they beat a young Gold Coast team in their first season. So a big win for the Blues over in Perth. Charlie Curnow kicking 9, which is more than any other players done since 2021. So you have to go back over a season.
Where does that take for a total of? Where's that taking to for the year? All the talk's been about Jeremy Cameron kicking 100 this year.
He was on 21, so he's up to 30.
Okay, 30 after 7.
Jeremy Cameron, by the way, is on 27.
27.
27.
27.
Yep.
They're going tomorrow.
With the Bombers to come tomorrow. So that question we posed about the forward line mix, have you got an answer?
I don't think they do at the moment. Yeah, I think it might come down to a health thing. Yeah, I think Van Rooyen's clearly very raw, isn't he? But what they like about him is he's aggressive, he has a crack, provides a contest. When the ball hits the ground, I think he's got a bit more about him than say, a Ben Brown does. And Tom McDonald's the other one who's seems to be struggling to stay out there consistently with his body. So, I mean, they're pretty settled at the moment. Possession's 9/10 of the law, isn't it? So at the moment, if the kid's up and fit and not sort of tiring, then it's his spot to lose. Petty's the other one, obviously. I think Petty forward, they're probably going to have a serious look at. I really like what I saw from him last week. He clearly knows what he's doing down there, and he went out today for Shaki to come in. So Shaki's more of a backup, I think, but I suppose it's not the worst thing to have 3 or 4 options, isn't it?
So
alongside the Grundy and Gawn.
So you look at the Shaki spot is Petty's.
Yep.
And then the other 3 are competing for one place.
Yes.
Yep. So it's either Brown, McDonald, or Van Rooyen.
Yep.
The way that it looks at the moment. The only other guys they've got out, so Spargo, who's in the concussion protocols at the moment, he'll come back, and the other one's Christian Salem, who, fortunately for 2 years since the premiership, hasn't been able to get a run at it with injury.
Yeah, he hasn't, and all of a sudden, you're out for too long, and you open the door, and someone like McVie comes in and just looks like a settled 50, 100 game player. So, past performance is one thing, but at the moment it's hard to see Christian Salem. Well, I think what it gives them is the luxury to play him for 3 or 4 weeks in the twos, and only come back in if he's in really good form. So we know. I mean, the premiership teams obviously have a deep squad of 28 or 30, and Melbourne is certainly no exception.
Carlton by 108 in Perth, Melbourne by 90 points here over North Melbourne. Big win for the D's. The votes in the ABC Footballer of the Year. I don't know if that's you, Beej, or Bally.
I've got 'em.
Brenda's been quietly compiling them now.
We might do them now because it'll sort of give us a bit more time on the back end if we get some reaction from the Melbourne rooms. So the D's by 90 points, the votes.
I'll start with one, Clayton Oliver. You know, the start to the game is really important. 16 in the first quarter, 23 in the first half. Shields goes to him end of the first, start of the second. Still manages to get off the chain a fair bit. He's just his influence around stoppage. 15 contested possession. I'm not a big stats man, as a lot of you may know, regular listeners, Lukey. But we do look at them. So it's more of a feel. But 2 to Chandler. We highlight him a number of times. Hardest position to play on the field, that high half forward. He's coming into the team the start of this year, you know, with some injuries to a couple of small, Sparrow in particular. Not able to keep his spot in the team through numerous reasons, and it hasn't looked like, you know, putting a foot out of place. And 3, I think just a solid game all round from start to finish. The track, should I say, the trucker. He, was, he kicked 3 in the end.
Yep.
35 disposals, the rest.
9 inside 50.
Enough said.
3 for Petrarca, 2 for Chandler, 1 for Oliver. The votes from Brendan Goddard in the ABC Footballer of the Year. Let's get back into the Melbourne rooms with Karen Peterson.
Thanks, Corbin. Jacob Van Rooyen has been good enough to join us. Complete domination tonight from the Demons. What's the most pleasing thing to take away from tonight's performance?
I think probably our defensive aspect of the game. That's something we've lacked a little bit over the past few weeks against Essendon and that first half against Richmond. So I think that that's been a real big focus coming into this week. Just having a really strong defence, even that starting out of the forward line. So our tackle and chase and pressure.
You're 5 games and 10 goals into your career. Are you still pinching yourself?
Well, no, it's pretty exciting. Like, I didn't think the start would go this well. Like, I mean, it's been great. It's been good fun.
The novelty of the Roo chant hasn't quite worn off yet?
No, it's still pretty cool. Like, whenever I kick a goal or take a mark, I just hear the crowd go up, a big Roo chant. So, no, it's been really great. And, thanks to all the fans for getting out and getting around me.
Just a quick word on Angus Brayshaw tonight. He played in game 150. For a younger player around the club, what does a guy like he bring to the team, and particularly to the young guys like yourself?
So for me, it's more just experience and a relaxed head. So some of us young guys, we can get a bit flustered if we have a bad quarter, bad half, but guys like him who've been doing it forever, they just go, things will turn, things will change. So I think, he's just more of a composed kind of influence on the younger guys.
I'm going to throw you upstairs. Our experts are Brendan Goddard and Luke Ball.
Beautiful, thanks.
Jacob, well done tonight and on your start to this year. And Kez mentioned it, you're 5 games into your career, but it's not your first year, is it? You've had to bide your time a little bit and really work hard to play some footy in the VFL. Obviously, coming into a really strong team, the reigning premier, you've really had to work hard and bide your time to get your opportunity this year.
Yeah, I have, but I think it's probably been for the best. Like last year, we were doing really well and our forwards were really strong. And I think towards the back end of the year, I was putting up some good form in the VFL, but I wasn't really AFL ready. I wasn't fit enough. Probably wasn't strong enough. So I think the clubs just had my best interest in mind in terms of holding me back that first year and then really throwing me in this year.
And what about tonight? Clearly, from really early on in the game, it was pretty lopsided, and the challenge can be playing forward of the ball in particular when your team's dominating to get into bad habits a little bit, and potentially, the eyes can light up a bit. We mentioned that Bailey Fritsch kicked 3 in the first 20 minutes. He might be eyeing an 8 or 10 goal bag, but I think the pleasing thing was that you had so many, you had multiple goal kickers. No one really stood out. You're able to really spread the load.
Yeah, no, that's the good thing about our team. We don't really focus on one guy. We don't have one key forward who we go through or anyone down there who's the main man, and that's really built off our kind of values around. It's a whole team effort. So some days it might be one guy's turn to kick all the goals, and another day it might be someone else's. But I think today when we're having multiple goal kickers, lots of them, it's a really great team effort.
Jacob, Brendan Goddard, mate, congratulations on the win and the start to your career. I just want to go back to your development and just ask the question, who are some of the guys, or there might be one or two of them, but that you've gravitated towards or have kind of taken under your, or taken you under their wing to, show you the ropes of AFL footy, and, obviously being part of the game for a long time, and you're obviously new into it, but there's so many facets of the game you need to learn as a young fella. But who have you really gravitated towards?
There's been a couple boys. Last year, a guy who was really big in helping me was Sam Wiedemann. He's now at the Bombers, and two other guys would be Tom McDonald, Benny Brown. They're always really supportive around me and help me with things like goal kicking, marking, just inconsistencies in forms and just how to get over that. So all three of those guys have been really great.
Are they going to be able to squeeze back into the team with you in there, mate, Tom and Ben? Or
pushing them out.
Yeah, is there room for them down there?
I'm sure there is. Both those guys have been doing really well. So, we'll see.
Jacob, appreciate your time, mate. All the best. Thanks for joining us.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
The Gold Coast next Saturday is the next appointment for the Demons. So they get 7 days at least after the short week. And then, of course, for North Melbourne, as we've touched on a couple of times, at St Kilda at Docklands in a bounce-back spot for the Saints after their Friday night defeat to Port Adelaide. The two games tonight, wide margins in both. Melbourne by 90 points over North, and it was Carlton by 108 points over West Coast. Charlie Curnow kicking 9, the biggest bag we've seen in the competition in almost 2 years. Or over 2 years, in fact, since we've had 9. Round 7 comes to a close tomorrow with two really big games. So in between that is Richmond and Gold Coast at Docklands, but it starts here at the MCG just after 1 o'clock. Essendon and Geelong. Sure, Beach, you'll be cheering on your former club and the Bombers. And then the late game is Collingwood and Adelaide. So that's over in South Australia with Laird and Seeds and Sidebottom both expected to play despite having injury concerns on that front. Thanks to you, Bally. Thanks, Paige. Lovely to see you again, as always, on Grandstand AFL. Thanks to Jess Webster. Thanks to Karen Peterson down in the rooms. To Stu Birchmore for doing a great job, and the cult figure Adam Jones back in the studio. So Carlton by 108 points over West Coast, and here it was the Demons